Hello out there in the Twitchiverse, or in the podcastiverse, or in the YouTubeverse, wherever you are ingesting this piece of media. Welcome on in. This is the IllumiNation podcast, the Disney Lorcana podcast. My name is Max.
And I'm Sam.
Who are you?
Sam.
Sam?
Sam.
Sam?
Can it really not hear me?
You're quieter than me. So we are here doing our set review. This is for Ursula's Return, set 4 of Disney's Lorcana. That's right. It's been almost an entire year since Disney Lorcana has come out, and it's been pretty exciting, up and down, a lot of different decks, and this set is probably going to be no exception. Going to shake things up, going to change things around, and make the game a little bit different. So if you joined us last time, we do the set review, and we run through all of the cards, and we give them a score from 1 through 5. You can see them above my head if you're watching this on a video, or live on Twitch. If you are, thank you so much. If not, and you're listening to the podcast, thank you so much. We have 1 through 5 scores, 1 being an understated card that's generally unplayable, 2 being a card that's probably relegated a bit more towards the limited side of things, 3 is a playable, maybe not the most exciting playable, but 1 you are happy to have here. Ooh, we got a resub there from Disco Computer, 59 months. Appreciate that. I guess the resub thing is a little different now. I have to go back and look at that. Thanks, Streamlabs, for changing all that around. Then we have number 4, which is an exciting card that you want to play, and number 5, a bomb, at least in context of the set, right? Like, it's hard to not give 5s when you're looking at a set review, and there's always going to be best cards in the game, and maybe this card doesn't live up to that hype. So that's okay. That's not, not every card in every set is going to be like, oh, this put one of the best X cards out in the game. That's okay. But I still want to be able to give 5s, and I still want to be able to give 1s. So that's why we're doing it that way. So this is a set bomb, not necessarily a game warping card for the entirety of Disney's Lorcana.
We do have 0.5s this time.
Yes, and if Sam and I have come out at different numbers, we will put things at a 0.5 for an average rating. She'll give a score, I'll give a score, we will end up with an average score. So we're going to jump right into it, and I'm not going to talk a lot about some of these cards because they probably are just going to be self-explainable, right? Like Augustin Madrigal here. Clumsy Daddy's a 2/2/1 for 1 inkable. No shift target, just a 2/2 for 1 inkable. That is definitely in the hallmark of a limited kind of card. So we are going to give him, I give him a 2.
And I give him a 2.
That means he gets a 2. Moving on to Alma Madrigal, the family matriarch. She's a 1/3/2 for 3 uninkable, and she has the ability to the table. When you play this character, you may search your deck for a Madrigal character card and reveal it to all players. You may shuffle your deck and then put that card on top of it. So she will find all the other family Madrigal members that you may be playing. This card feels like it could be a tutor in the right deck. I don't know if there's enough Madrigals or enough powerful Madrigals yet to warrant a deck, but it does play well, obviously, with a card we will get to later on, with one of the new Brunos. We will talk about him. Spoiler alert. So I feel like this card has some context, also pretty good with Maribel. So I feel like if this card were to gel, it could be playable. I'm going to give it a 3. I think it'd be an unexciting role player because it's going to get to your exciting cards if you play this card. Don't really think it's going to make a huge impact, so a little generous. Sam, what was your score?
A 2.
Which is probably more realistic, honestly, which would give us a mid-ground here, a 2.5, somewhere between not playable or an unexciting role player in the game. Moving on to our 4-drop, our first Ariel, Singing Mermaid. She's a 3/3/2 for 4 inkable. By the way, if you're not familiar with our system here, I read the strength and the willpower and then the amount it quests for. And then I tell you the cost and whether it's inkable or not. She has just the ability of Singer 7, so she sings way ahead of Curve. instead of singing like Spectacular Singer 2 ahead of Curve, or Vanessa, which we'll get to in a bit, 2 ahead of Curve, she's singing a full 3 ahead of Curve. However, she is a 4 cost that is only a 3/3, so very susceptible to steel removal, very open to being taken out by a Madame Medusa. I'm going to say that a lot during the set review, and I think that she doesn't quite do enough, in my opinion. I think that she is just simply okay. I think the most important thing that she does is sing a 7-cost song, specifically Look at This Family in Color, and one of your favorite cards,
Be prepared.
Be Prepared. So maybe if she can find a deck that wants her for those reasons, she might be playable. Otherwise, I don't really see her as making too much of an impact in the game. Certainly not exciting. I gave her a 3.
I gave her a 4.
So that gives us a 3.5, which I think is fair, especially compared to Alma Madrigal. So next is Cinderella Melody Weaver. This is our first legendary card of the set review. It is a 1/5/2 for 5, and it is inkable. It has the ability of Singer 9, so a full 4 ahead now, and the ability of Beautiful Voice. Whenever this character sings a song, your other princesses get +1 lore this turn, so they get to quest for an additional lore. Hyper Hippo coming in with the 11 months. I really am mad that they changed this little sub notification here.
It's cute.
It is cute, but I don't like it. It was B. Arthur, which I liked way better because it goes with our Golden Girls theme. But
I don't know who that is.
she's from Golden Girls. She's an actress. You shouldn't say that on the stream. She's like our mascot. She's an angry, bitter old woman.
That was before me.
You're now the angry, bitter old woman?
No.
Oh. B. Arthur is best Arthur. I agree. Clearly we need to watch more Golden Girls. But I think that this Cinderella is overcosted for what she does. I feel like you're going to end up paying 5 a lot of the time, and she's not going to do anything before she gets tagged out.
To sing 9?
To sing 9. What song is she really singing that you really care about past, like, Under the Sea? Like, not really
Wish
anything
Upon a
there.
Star, or what's it called?
Second Star Rate, she cannot sing on her own.
Well, not on her own, but a little guy can do it with her.
The only song that she can't sing on her own, really.
And her second ability's pretty good, too.
It's good in a princess deck.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see princess decks in core constructed yet. That could change. For now, I give her a 2.
I gave her a 3. I
Yeah.
almost said 4.
Yeah, it's underwhelming, I would say, for a legendary character. Moving on to Cogsworth with a ginormous hat. This is a 3/3/1 for 4 inkable. He is the Major Domo, and he has the ability As You Were. Whenever this character quests, you may give chosen character -2 strength until the start of your next turn. 0 stars, dies to Dragonfire. I agree with you there. Dies to Madame Medusa. That's the new Dragonfire. This card, not super exciting. Not a whole lot to talk about here. Certainly falls in the category of limited, so I gave it a 2.
Same.
Moving on to Daisy Duck Lovely Lady. This completes our 1/3s for 1. This time Amber gets it. It is, of course, a 1/3/1 for 1 inkable. Daisy Duck Lovely Lady. Yeah, not a whole lot I can say here. I think this color can do a lot better at this ink cost. I don't think it's going to do a whole lot. However, could be played if you need to pair it with red for Teeth and Ambitions, things of that nature. So I gave it a 3. If you have it, it's certainly going to be filler.
I gave it a 3, too.
Thank you. Moving on to Daisy Duck Musketeer Spy, our first Musketeer. Very exciting. This is a 2/3/1 for 4 inkable with the ability of Infiltration. When you play this character, each opponent chooses and discards a card. So we've seen this effect before. I like that it's on a 2/3. It's fine. 4 is a little high. I like the flexibility with the inkable. This plays really well with the Muses, who we'll get to later. I think this could certainly be a thing in that regard. Otherwise, I think it's just okay. I don't think it's anything terribly exciting. I gave it... Oh, I did want to note that this is each opponent, so this, of course, is a little bit stronger in multiplayer, and there's a cool shadow on the wall. I gave it a 2.
And I gave it a 2.
I think it's very, very good. RWB 9000 gifting out a Tier 1 sub to an over-encumbered Fruit Bowl. Fruit Bowl, how you doing? Happy to see your name pop up on our stream, not on a Jared stream. We're not playing Knights of the Old Republic, but we're happy you are here. So welcome on in. And again, thanks to everybody who is ingesting this content in whatever way they choose to do so. Really appreciate it. Moving on is Donald Duck Another Musketeer, this time Musketeer Soldier. He is a 2/3/1 for 3 inkable. He has the ability of Bodyguard and the ability of Wait for Me. When you play this character, chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. So he's like a one-time Eye of the Fates. So I think that's kind of interesting. I like that he bodyguards. It's not the best card, but like it costs 1 more to give somebody the ability to quest for 1 more. So you could like Lilo and then quest for 3 if you wanted to. Or Simba, Lilo, Simba, and then Donald Duck follow up in that order. The stats aren't phenomenal, but they are pretty darn good. I don't think they're going to blow anything out of the water here. I don't think this is anything spectacular. It can be kind of like Crappy Goat if you can pick it up and put it back down, I suppose. So it is kind of a little bit better than perhaps it looks at first blush. I certainly don't think it's exciting or a strong staple, so I gave this one a 3.
And I also gave it a 3. Did you say Crappy Goat?
Crappy Goat. I said that. Just
Okay.
said it. Felix Madrigal's our next one. He's a fun-loving family man. He's a 2/4/2 for 3 inkable. I gave this a 2, and that's all I have to say about that.
Same.
Moving on to Gaston Despicable Dealer. He's a 2/4/1 for 3 uninkable, and he has the ability of Dubious Recruitment. You may exert this character and then pay 2 ink less for the next character you play this turn. A really interesting card, especially in the Mufasa decks, where you can power out a Madame Medusa way ahead of schedule. I would be terrified to be playing this Gaston in the mirror and going second.
Yeah.
Because then they just get to blow up your Gaston and you get to go cry and pick up your cards and play another game and try to win that one. Because you ain't winning this one probably. It is definitely a bomby card. The uninkable means that it's at odds in that deck with Doc. I don't think that it's necessarily better or worse. It is different. It depends on what your deck really wants to do.
I think it's better.
You think it's better.
Mm-hmm.
It is an exert, so you could ready him in theory to like play a 3 red LaFoe to then get another discount.
Yeah.
There's benefit.
Or if you can't quest, like, if you make him not be able to quest for some reason, he can still exert.
Right, like there's options here. You could use the ability if you were to get reckless. Like there's minor little upsides and minor little downsides to both, which I think is the hallmark of good game design. I gave Gaston a 4.
I also gave it a 4.
I think it is going to be a strong staple in the decks that it is good in. Coming up next, we have Golden Harp, Enchanter of the Land. This is a 1/4/2 for 1 inkable, the ability of Stolen Away. At the end of your turn, if you didn't play a song this turn, banish this character. Now, I think that this is a cool card. I think this is a piece of unique space. However, when it comes to TCG history, cards that play well with other cards are awesome. Cards that require you to play with other cards are not. And this falls into that latter category, so I gave this card a 1. I think it is just stone cold unplayable.
I was a little nicer and gave it a 2.
So that gives us a 1.5 with the note of a cool card, which it is. I'm happy it exists, but I don't think it's playable and core constructed at this point in time. Next up, we have Goofy, Musketeer Swordsman. Goofy's a 3/4/2 for 4 with the ability of Engwarsh. Whenever you play a character with Bodyguard, you get to ready this character. He can't quest for the rest of this turn. I don't understand this card. I don't understand the design of this card. He has stats as if he were trying to be a challenging card, but he also quests for 2, but only has 4 willpower on a 4 drop. Like, it feels like this should be a 3/5 or a 4/4, something to make it have direction. Right now, to me, it feels directionless. Like, it feels like you're trying to use this card to like challenge a small character and then or quest and then challenge a small character. This feels really like it's too divided to be a good cohesive card. Generally, the best cards are ones that are cohesive and do something well. This does 2 things, neither of which particularly well in my opinion. So I gave this one a 2.
And I agreed with you.
Yep, not a big fan of Goofy, despite the fact I like the Musketeers are coming back. Coming up on our next card, this is Julieta Madrigal. She's an excellent cook. She also happens to be a 1/4/1 for 3 inkable with the ability of Signature Recipe. When you play this character, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. If you did remove damage this way, you may draw a card. Over Encumbered Fruit Bowl, hello to you. Happy Sunday. Hope everything is well. I will tell you right now, this is, I guess, a spoiler alert, but this is my pick for the best card in Amber for Ursula's Return. I think this card is awesome. I think, yeah, way to go, RWB. Really appreciate it. I think that this card is awesome. I think that this card does a lot in the Mufasa style decks. It does well in the Amber cares about hitting things decks. We might see an Amber Steel deck start to come into play with Phil. We'll get there. And I think that this is a pretty exciting card. It's not going to, like, blow the roof off of things looking at it, but when you play it, you're going to be happy that this is in your deck because it's inkable, and it also gives you some card advantage. In a way, it replaces itself, and it's got hidden bonus of being a 1/4, which means that if it gets hit by a 3 or challenges a 3, you get to play the slightly bigger, lots better Rapunzel, gifted with healing, and draw even more cards. So I think this card is awesome in practice. It doesn't look super flashy. I give it a 5, as I think it is a bomb for this particular set, though it doesn't look it.
I did a 4.
You don't play yellow, that's why.
Yeah, and Rapunzel's better.
Yeah, I think this is the best Amber card. So that lands us at a 4.5 for Julieta. Next up is me, Loyal Sheepdog, 4/3/1, 4/3 inkable, with the ability of Here Boy. If you have a character named Prince Eric in play, you may pay 1 ink less to play this character. I think that this card would be awesome if we had a 1-drop Eric. I think that you really need that card to make this go Eric on 1, Max on 2. And this card would be hard to deal with. Like, I do like it. I just am waiting for an Eric to show up to really make it good. So for now, I feel like stats are not a playable ability in the game. So as of right now, this is a 1 for me.
And I put it at a 2. Just because I think it could be good with Eric.
Yes, it'll get way better with 1-drop Eric. So I'm not such a good card in this set, turns out. Mickey Mouse, next, leader of the band. This is a 2/5/1 for 4, inkable with support and strike up the music. When you play this character, chosen character gains support this turn. So far, support hasn't really been a factor in Core Constructed. I don't know as though it's going to be. It definitely is in the co-op, Ursula's Quest or whatever, Deep Trouble. Yeah, the new co-op game. It was a lot of fun, by the way. The co-op game was really cool. I'm excited to do an episode on the podcast on it because I think there's a lot to unpack within it. So that's an exciting one. But on the whole, I think that right now support in Core Constructed doesn't really mean anything. I think that the stats are pretty poor. So overall, like, I want my supporters to at least quest for a couple so that I feel like I'm getting something out of it. So for this one, I gave it a 2.
And I think I agreed.
You did.
I did.
Also, the art's a little weird. Next up is Mickey Mouse, Musketeer Captain. I was very excited about a Musketeer Captain until I read the rest of the card. It's a 3/6/2 for 7 uninkable. It shifts for 5. It has Bodyguard, it has support, and it has the ability of Musketeers United. When you play this character, if you shifted him into play, you may draw a card for each character with Bodyguard that you have in play.
It's a weird Bodyguard support deck.
So I want to compare this to another yellow legendary, that being our buddy Stitch, Carefree Surfer, who is a 7-drop that is inkable, that is a 4/8/2. And when it comes in, as long as you have 2 other characters, you get to draw 2 cards. Now, this Mickey can draw you more cards, but it has to be shifted in onto another Mickey, and it can only be for the number of bodyguards you have in play. So that is a problem. He'll draw 1 if you shift him in, because he has bodyguard. But this card just feels so underwhelming in direct comparison to a same color legendary. When you're looking at 2 amber legendaries like this back to back, and they look so contrastly different, you wonder why this card requires you to jump through so many hoops. The support especially feels a little stapled on. I like the bodyguard aspect because a lot of the Musketeers have it, so it would make sense that this Mickey would. I just feel like this card is, if you look at the upside, it seems like it could be really good, but in practice, this asks so much of you for so little in return a lot of the time that I really do not think that this card is very good, and unfortunately is the hallmark of being uninkable to boot. So I was not a fan. I gave it a 2.
And I also gave it a 2.
Yeah, the legendaries for Amber not looking so hot in this set. We'll continue the Musketeer train here with Minnie Mouse, Musketeer Champion. It's a 1/5/2 with Bodyguard and the ability of Dramatic Entrance. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 5 strength or more. She's also a 5 cost on Inkable, if I didn't say that. So she has Greatest Criminal Mind attached to a 1/5/2, which is okay. I wish this card was inkable. Like, I wish this card was inkable. Like, a 1/5/2 for 2 uninkable is pretty good stat line. I can see why this would be super rare. It just needs to be inkable. Like, the uninkable legitimately takes this card from what would have probably been a 4 in Amber down to what I gave it, which was a 2, because it's just so conditional.
I gave it a 3.
You are kinder than I am to old Minnie Mouse, though I do think she is one of the better Musketeers in this particular set. That doesn't say a lot, even though I really want Musketeers to be awesome, and I'm still going to build the deck. I have 1 Mini Enchanted, so I'm looking for another one. I probably won't ever play more than 2 of this card in a deck, so I'm hoping I can get away with 2 here. I'm hoping that price comes way down, because card's not very good. Next up is Mirabelle Madrigal. This is a 3/5/2 for 5 uninkable yet again, with the support ability and another ability called Saving the Miracle. Whenever this character quests, your other Madrigal characters get 1 additional lure this turn when they quest. So it's an okay card. This is the payoff, right? This is the big, like, I'm playing Madrigal.deck, and this is my payoff card for playing Madrigal.deck. So then that means how good, in fact, is Madrigal.deck? And that's what remains to be seen. It is one of the starter builds, so if you're interested in it, it's very easy to pick up a lot of the pieces by getting the starter deck. But on the whole, I don't think that this card does a whole heck of a lot that impresses me unless you're playing that particular deck, and I just don't see the strength in it. Spoiler alert as we go through. I think there's a couple strong Madrigals, but there's probably not enough to make an entire deck yet. Still a lot of game ahead of us, so that may, of course, change quite a bit. But for now, I think that Mirabelle is just a 2 for me.
I gave her a 3 just because I think she's a good build around.
I think that's fair to 2.5. Coming up next, we have Mirabelle Madrigal yet again. This is the common version here. It's a 2/2/1 with support. She's the Prophecy Finder. She has no other abilities. It's just kind of a filler card. It's not very good. Again, support is irrelevant here, so it would really only be relegated to limited. And with the limited experience I have, none for Ursula's Return yet. I haven't played that, but the other limited experience I have, this probably isn't even really playable there, so I gave this one a 1.
And I agreed with a 1.
Yeah, it's just not really good. If this was like a 2/2/2 for 2 with support, that'd be pretty good. Even if it was a 2/1/2 with support, that'd be pretty good. Or a 1/2/1 with support for 2. That'd be pretty good. That all said, I don't think this one is, unfortunately. Next up is Pluto Rescue Dog. This is a 4/5/2 for 5 inkable with the ability of To the Rescue. When you play this character, you may remove up to 3 damage from one of your characters. You don't get to draw any cards, and that's a big problem. The other problem is this Pluto, while having really decent stats, unfortunately is on the same cost as the Shift Pluto, the Pluto with a cape on, and that means that we don't have a good shift line for this with this Pluto, which means that most likely this Pluto is coming down to its stats and healing, which are largely irrelevant. So I think that this Pluto, unfortunately, might be okay just because it does dodge some of the red removal that's looking to get weaker characters in terms of strength. So while it's strong, it's not doing much else. If we see it, it might be a copy or 2 here or there. I think at best, I think this is a generous 3 for me.
Same.
Moving on to Prince Eric. This is the Seafaring Prince. 3/3/1 for 3 inkable with Bodyguard. So it is the Amber version of the Steel Hercules from set 1.
Or Rafiki.
Hercules. Rafiki's Rush.
Oh.
There's no
yes.
Bodyguard Rafiki. Please refrain from making up cards on the set review. So this Eric is fine. I think it's going to be generically okay when it comes up. I don't know as though this is good enough in Amber because we have a lot of options for good bodyguards. So on the whole, I don't think it's quite there, but it's going to be playable. Some builds might want a version of it here or there. I give it a 3.
I also gave it a 3.
And next we have a Prince Eric, who is also not like any Rafikis. This is a 5/5/2. It's Prince Eric, Ursula's groom. It is a 6 cost inkable, and it quests for 2. also shifts for 4, and it has the ability of Under Vanessa's spell. While you have a character named Ursula in play, this character gains Bodyguard and gets 2 additional willpower. So this card is one of the connected arts. It's a really cool set of connected arts. I really like it a lot, so shout out to the artist for that. It was really neat. But I think on the whole that this card is pretty underwhelming. Like, I don't want to be paying this much for some stats, and like conditional Bodyguard like seems pretty underwhelming. I gave this one a 2.
I also gave it a 2.
Coming up next, we have Stitch Alien Dancer 23142. I also gave this one. I don't give this one a 3 because it has a shift target.
And I gave it a 2 because I think there's better shift targets.
I agree with you there. Coming up next, we have Ursula Eric's Brides, a 242 for 4, uninkable. She has shift. Discard a card. So the shift cost now is not ink. It is a specific action that you can pay that is not ink related. So this is a cycle of cards we will see more of in this set. And it's the first time we've seen a card like this. And she has an ability called Vanessa's Design. Whenever this character quests, chosen opponent reveals their hand and discards a non-character card of your choice. So whenever this character quests, you get to bare necessities your opponent. Strong card. I think it is. It's quite good. It has a lot of implication in terms of really being oppressive. I think that it can do a lot. I think shifting from Vanessa is relevant. I think Vanessa being the 1/4, which is the Rapunzel stats, that has the Singer 4, is a good shift target, and we'll talk about her in a minute. I gave this one a 4. I think it is a strong staple in the decks you want to play this effect.
Yep, and I agreed with you at a 4.
Excellent. We have the aforementioned Ursula Vanessa, 2 first names. This is a 1/4/1 for 2 inkable, and she is a Singer 4. So as opposed to Sebastian and Miss Bianca, this Singer 4 has the 1/4 stat line, which is a lot more important in Amber because of Rapunzel. So I think that this card would fit a lot better into a song-style deck, whether it's yellow-green or yellow-gray, old Amber Steel Song, or Amber Emerald New Song, whatever you want to call that. I think she's pretty good, though. I think on the whole, I'm pretty happy with her in a deck like this. I would give her a 4 as well.
I gave her a 3.
I think that that's fair. She's slightly worse probably than the other one. Next, we have Bruno's Return as our first action of the review. It is a 2-cost uninkable, and it returns a character card from your discard to your hand. Then, you can remove 2 damage from chosen character. This just feels like it's a card you probably are playing in Limited, just because you want a recursion effect. We already have better versions. We have a song version, and we have Hades, and we have Perdita, and we just, like, there's infinite ways to bring, not infinite, but there's a lot of ways to interact with your discard pile that are better than Bruno's Return. This remove 2 damage just feels kind of stapled on because 2 uninkable doesn't feel good enough. If this was inkable, I'd be interested, maybe, perhaps, but as of right now, I definitely am not. I think this is a limited card. I gave it a 2.
And I gave it a 1 because I don't like it.
You don't like it. Next is First Aid, speaking of cards I don't like. This is an action as well. It costs 1 and is inkable, and you may remove 1 damage from each of your characters. Gave this card a 1.
And I gave it a 1.
Let me just scroll down here. And next we have a Sing Together song. It's our first song of the set review. It also happens to be our first Sing Together song ever that we will review. It is called Look at This Family. It is, of course, a song. It has the ability of Sing Together 7. It is a 7-cost inkable. Sing Together means that you and any number of your teammates' characters, as long as they total 7 or more, can sing this together as a group for free, which is pretty neat. This card lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may reveal up to 2 characters and put them into your hand. Then you put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order that you so choose. Either this card's a 4.5. I think that it is one of the better Sing Together songs for sure. It's a good cost to be sung. This is one we talked about when we talked about the Ariel on 4 that could sing this on her own. I think that double Be Our Guest is often relevant in the Amber colors, or color. I think that most of the time they are. This color strength is that it is a character-focused color, and it has above-rate characters. So I think that this benefits it pretty well. I don't know as though it's a fantastic card, but I think that it is pretty good. I gave it a 3. I think you'll play it, but I don't think it's exciting to play.
I gave it a 4, so I agree with you more Yeah, Hyper Hippo.
Yep, comes out for us to a 3.5. I think that is between unexciting role player to strong staple. I think that's about where it lands for sure. Next up is Lost in the Woods. This is just a regular song. Only one character can sing it. And all opposing characters get -2 strength until the start of your next turn. We've seen this effect before. This one does it to the group of your opponent's characters. I don't think this is particularly good. It might be a playable in limited. I don't know for sure. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 1.
Yeah, it's good with Under the Sea. That's about it. Sign the Scroll is an action, not a song. It costs 3 and is uninkable. Each opponent may choose and discard a card. For each opponent who does not, you gain 2 lore. Definitely more of a multiplayer card. This will probably never see any kind of play in the core constructed format. I don't think it's very good at all. I gave it a 1.
And I also gave it a 1.
Puts it on a 1. Next up, Miracle Candle. This is an item. It costs 2 and is inkable and has the ability of Abuela's Gift. You can banish this item if you have 3 or more characters in play. You can gain 2 lore and remove up to 2 damage from a chosen location. Makes sense in a madrigal sense because that's a family. They want a lot of them out. I think the flavor is cool. I think the art's pretty awesome. The foil looks wicked cool. And I think it's possible playable. Anything that gains you lore out of nowhere is worth considering in this game, in my opinion. I put it at a 3.
And I did a 2.
Could be good. I think there's a fair way to put it. Speaking of cards that could be good, this ain't one of them. It's Record Player. It's an item. It costs 2 and is inkable. It has 2 abilities. The first is Look at This. Whenever you play a song, chosen character gets -2 strength until the start of your next turn. And has a second ability called Hit Parade. Your character's name Stitch count as having +1 cost for singing songs. This is like super specific and kind of weird, and if you draw this late, is unplayable. Like just all the hallmarks of a card that's too specific and too conditional. It is definitely a 1 for me.
Same.
Moving on to Atlantica. Apologies, there's no good way to do these locations because of the way that they're oriented, so you just kind of got to like turn your head if you're watching this on video. But I will read it for you. It is a location. It is Atlantica Concert Hall. It's a 1-cost inkable location. It's got 6 willpower. It's got a 2 movement cost. It does not produce any lore, and it has the ability of Underwater Acoustics. Characters count as having +2 cost to sing songs while they are here at Atlantica. This card is not good. I don't think it'll ever be good. Maybe, possibly, but probably not. I gave it a 1.
And I also gave it a 1.
And our second and final location for Amber, also our final card for Amber, is the Underworld, the River Styx. This is a 2-cost inkable location. It is 6 willpower, 2 to move, and it has 1 passive lore. It also has the ability of Save a Soul. Whenever a character quests while here, you may pay up to pay 3 ink to return, not up to. You may pay 3 ink. You have to pay exactly that. To return a character from your discard pile to your hand. So you can kind of use this to quest and get characters back. It's got some potential, perhaps. Like, the stats are pretty bad because it can just get hit one-shotted by Maui, which is always the hallmark of not the strongest location. It's cheap, so it can start gaining the passive lore relatively quickly. It has implications in the late game. When you have, like, 8, 9, 10 ink, you could definitely play a character, move it, use it, pay for it, and get something back that's relevant. It's possible it's something. I gave it a 2 because I just feel like it's a lot of hoops you got to jump through to make it something you want to play.
I agree with you, but I also think it might be a 1. But we'll keep it at a 2.
As a 2
Just
from
nobody
us.
nobody does that move cost. It's too expensive. It ruins the pace of the game. I just don't like it.
I can tell. Moving on to Amethyst. We now have our first card here. Great art on this one. This is Antonio Madrigal, Animal Expert. It's a 3/4/1 for 3. It's stats, which means it's probably a limited card, which means that it probably will not see play in core constructed. I gave Antonio a 2.
Yep, same.
Moving on to super rare, Belle, Accomplished Mystic. This is a 4/4/2 for 5 inkable. She has Shift 3 and the ability of Enhanced Healing. When you play this character, move up to 3 damage counters from chosen character to chosen opposing character. We've seen this ability a lot out of Amber in the last set and now in this set. It seems to be their way of dealing damage is to move damage counters, which is pretty interesting because Amethyst does get some of the better cards at taking damage. Actual Rafiki with Rush and Madam Mim, Maui, all are relevant cards that can deal damage yet still stay on the board because they come down ahead of time in terms of their stat lines. And I feel like Belle can utilize that a bit to help you move things around. She feels a little bit like Yzma did, the 6-drop Yzma, Scary Beyond All Reason. So I think that she has potential here to be something. So I'm going to be optimistic and say that she has the hallmarks of a 3.
And I disagree. I think she's a 2.
So
I don't like her.
You don't like her. Continuing on the cards we don't like train, this is Belle Untrained Mystic. This is a 3/3/1 for 3 inkable with the ability of Here Now, Don't Do That. When you play this character, move up to 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. This card's pretty bad because it smashes into the shift line. So shifting this, you'd want to cost 2 so that you could shift Belle on 3. And the thing that really is holding Accomplished Mystic back is it doesn't have a good shift target. So you can't use like your 1/3 Olaf to hit something and then move the damage around. Like you can't do that. So it really gets impacted hard by how bad the shift target here is because it's not a 2-drop Belle. If it was like a 2/3/1 for 2 inkable, I think this Belle combo could be a thing. Likely not, but possible. But for now, this card's pretty unplayable. I can't imagine it even being good and limited. I gave it a 1.
Yeah, I agreed.
Moving on to Bruno Madrigal, Out of the Shadows. This is a 4/5/1 for 5 uninkable with the ability of It Was Your Vision. When you play this, that's how they sound in the movie, clearly. Like bad Doctor Strange's.
Say it again.
It was your vision.
Okay.
When you play this character, chosen character gains. When this character is banished in a challenge, you may return this card to your hand this turn. The uninkable here makes it really rough. It's like Tiny Facilier, one time. It's Facilier never really saw any play. That was not intended to rhyme, but it did. And I don't know as though this is really going to be impactful in any meaningful way. I gave it a 2.
And I agreed with the 2.
Moving on to Bruno Madrigal, Undetected Uncle. This is a 3/3/1 for 4 inkable with the evasive ability and another ability of you just have to see it. You exert this character, name a card. So this is just the name. So this would be like Magic Broom, for example. Not a specific one. Like you don't have to say Magic Broom, Big Sweeper. You just have to say Magic Broom. Any Magic Broom will do. Then reveal the top card of your deck. If it is in fact the name card, you put it into your hand and gain 3 lore. Otherwise, you put it back on top of your deck. This works well with 2 Bruno because you could see what one is and then name it with the other.
Or with your favorite, Ursula's Cauldron.
No, that card is terrible no matter what you're doing with it. But the boss is on a roll.
I think it could be a good build around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's 100% a build around.
I mean, even a 3/3/1 for 4 evasive is all right.
No, it isn't.
Well, I play...
You're trying way too hard to defend this
evasives are good.
I think it's okay. It is definitely a build around. I gave it a 3.
I also gave it a 3.
Yeah, ain't that good. Next up is Camilo Madrigal, 2/5/1 for 4 inkable with the ability of Many Forms. At the start of your turn, you may choose one. This character gets +1 lore when it quests this turn, or this character gains Challenger 2 this turn. So a little bit of a role player. What do you need it to be? It will be that thing. Interesting card, to be sure. I don't think with the stats and the ability that Amethyst has to do what it needs to do, this is going to fit into this grand scheme of things. I gave it a 2 because I could see it being good and limited.
And I also gave it a 2.
Moving on to Dolores Madrigal, 3/3/2 for 4 inkable with the ability of Magical Informant. When you play this character, if an opponent has an exerted character in play, you may draw a card. It's a good card. Amethyst has the ability to make things exert. It has the ability to lock things down in an exerted fashion. And I think that this card does draw you a card a lot of the time. The stat line looks solid here. Like, this is kind of like fighting Maleficent for a spot in your deck, depending on your curve. Mm-hmm. But I think that she could take up arms and be a reasonable card if you would rather have this on the 4.
And I agree.
I gave her a 3.
I gave her a 4 because I want to try her.
Yeah, she seems like she could be pretty interesting. Moving on, we have Elsa Stormchaser. She is a 1/4/3 uninkable, and she quests for 1. She has the ability of Tempest. You can exert her and give chosen character Challenger 2 and Rush this turn. So she can turn anything into a thing, and it looks pretty nasty. I think paired with red, we could see this card be pretty interesting. I think the thing that kills this card is the uninkable. Purple, and especially when paired with red, tend to have the ruby amethyst decks tend to have a lot of uninkables and really struggle with their uninkable count because a lot of the red cards tend to be uninkable. This card, unfortunately, feels like it's going to not make the cut a lot of times just because you're going to have stronger uninkables that you're looking to play.
Yep, I agree.
So I give it a 3 because I do think it's a playable.
Yeah, I also gave it a 3.
Moving on, we have Flotsam. It's a 4/2/1 for 3 uninkable. Has 2 abilities. One is Quick Escape. When this character is banished in a challenge, you get to return it to your hand. We saw this on Hey Hey before. And it has the ability of Ominous Pair. Your character's name Jetsam gain. When this character is banished in a challenge, return it to your hand. So it's comes back. It can keep being annoying, but it's largely just stats, which isn't really a playable. I could see maybe it being a limited card just because of the 4 being able to hit and then come back and hit and come back. It can trade up in limited, so I think it's fine. I gave it a 2 because of the limited. Yeah, I don't think it's very good in core constructed. It is uninkable. Next up, we have Flotsam and Jetsam. Entangling Eels. These 2 are a 5/5/2 for 6 inkable. They also have a shift of discard 2 cards. That's it. They're stats. They quest for 2. They can come down quickly if you can get a cheap Flotsam or Jetsam down. I just don't know if, so you have to have the Flotsam or Jetsam down, then you have to discard 2 cards, and then you play this Flotsam and Jetsam. So now you're 4 cards invested into a 5/5/2. So I don't think that's how you're going to do it. I don't think you're going to want to pay 6 for a 5/5/2 vanilla. So overall, I think that both ways you can play this card kind of get ruled out. Maybe you play it in limited because of this, again, because those stats kind of do matter in limited at times. I gave them a 2 because of that.
And I gave him 1 again.
1 again. Next we have Isabella Madrigal. This is a 3/4/1, or is it? 4/5 inkable. She is evasive. She has 2 abilities in addition to evasive. Ladies first. During your turn, if no other character has quested this turn, this character gains +3 lore when she quests. And then she has another ability, Leave It to Me. Whenever this character does quest, your other characters can't quest the rest of this turn. So she's pretty good in that she can sit on her own and just quest hard. So if you're playing a very controlling version of like a red purple deck, ruby amethyst deck, for example, she might be good enough on her own to just kind of solo you into a high lore count. On the whole, it's just okay. It's good enough stats to take out Surfing Mini. She kind of checks a lot of the boxes. I wish she costs not as much, of course. I'm glad she's inkable. I just don't know if this card really cuts the mustard. I think it could see play in something like a Blurple because you do get the Lucky Dime. You can Lucky Dime plus quest with her for 8. So that's something, but there are a lot of characters that you can get a benefit from when you have enough ink that Lucky Dime's a card.
So if just nobody has quested on board and you Lucky Dime her,
you get 4.
She get 4. So then you could proceed to just quest with everything else and not have to worry about that ability.
Yeah, but I mean, if everything's going that well, does this character really matter all that much?
I was just curious.
You're correct. I just don't think she's that good. I gave her a 3. I think she might be a playable, possibly, like a 2 of in certain decks that are looking for this.
I gave her 4 because I like her.
You crazy. Next up is Jetsam. This is a 2/4/1 for 3 inkable this time. Has Challenger +2 and the ability of Ominous Pair that gives your character's Flotsam Challenger 2. I don't know as though this card is very good. I don't think that... I mean, it hits hard for cheap. That's something. I don't know. It just doesn't seem good. I don't know as though I even play this in limited. I gave it a 1.
I gave all of them a 1.
Not a Flotsam and Jetsam fan. Louisa Madrigal. This is a 4/3/1 1 for 4 uninkable with Rush. I also gave Louisa a 1. There's no way she's making it into core constructed. I don't even know if this is a limited card, to be honest.
I gave her 1.
Next up, Magic Broom Illuminary Keeper. So 1/2/1 for 1 inkable. Has the ability of Nice and Tidy. Whenever you play another character, you may banish this character to draw a card. This is the Magic Broom to end all Magic Brooms so far because of its ability to work with Yin Sid and just go, okay, there's a broom in play, draw a card, and now there's another character coming to play, draw a card. So it can actually churn between the two into a good 1-2 line in a broom deck. So that's exciting. Other than that, I don't know how good it is. It could possibly replace Chernobog's Followers as the one drop of choice in purple decks because you can quest with it, get the lore, and then play a character, and then get rid of this and draw your card, which is interesting. You can kind of do it all. You get your lore, you get your card, you can keep it on board if you feel like it's more relevant and going to survive. I think it's pretty darn good. It is definitely the best broom. I gave it a 4 because I think in the broom deck specifically, it's going to be the strongest card.
Yeah, I liked it. I gave it a 4, and I liked it when we played the quest.
Yeah.
I think it did really well in my deck.
It played according to plan. This is another Magic Broom. It's a Lively Sweeper. It's a 2/4/1 for 3 that is inkable. This card is Poop Soup. It is a 1.
Yep.
Magical Maid Feather Duster 2/2/2 for 2 inkable. I gave it a 2.
Give it a 2.
Lots of 2s on that card. Marshmallow Terrifying Snowman. This is an 0/3/1 for 3 uninkable. Poor Marshmallow and his uninkableness. It's the ability of Behemoth. This character gets 1 strength for each card in your hand. I think that there's a Red Sisu we'll talk about that's a lot better than this card is. I think the uninkable is the thing that keeps this card down. I don't know as though it's going to be terribly good in limited just because it's harder to keep a hand, like a robust hand size in limited, but I could see it maybe being played there. I don't know. I gave it a 2.
And I gave it a 1.
Yeah, it seems a little bit better than a 1 to me, but not much. Next we have Mrs. Potts. She is the Enchanted Teapot, of course. She's a 3/4/2 for 4 inkable. She has the ability of it will turn out all right. It'll turn out all right. When you play this, it'll turn out all right if I read it right. When you play this character, if you have a character named Lumiere or Cogsworth in play, you may draw a card. 3/4/2 on 4 is okay, but it gets taken down by Mim. Always looking at that to make sure that at least she trades. That's something. She replaces herself and she can quest for 2. If those are the boxes your deck is looking to tick, then it could be a playable. I gave it a 2. I just don't know if it breaks through, honestly, into core constructed.
Yeah, I kept it at a 2.
Moving on to Peppa Madrigal. This is a 1/5/1 for 5 uninkable. It looks like rain. When you play this character, you may exert chosen opposing character, That character can't ready at the start of their next turn unless they are at a location. So this is kind of like half an Elsa. The stats aren't stellar. I don't know. It's not inkable still, right? We see that's pretty consistent.
So expensive.
It's
for half an
expensive.
Elsa.
Yeah, it's a tough card to really make work. I think that you could maybe have her see play if you can recur her and have her like in a tempo-y style deck that really wants this. I could maybe see this coming through just because she is less than Elsa. Getting to that 8's really hard. Getting to 5's much more realistic. So I could maybe see this being a playable. I give it a 3.
I gave it a 2. I would be happy to play her in limited.
Yeah. Next up is Peter Pan Shadow Finder. This is a 2/3/1 for 3 uninkable. Peter has Rush and Evasive, and the ability of Fly, of course. Your other characters with Evasive gain Rush. So this is very akin to Peter Pan's Shadow. The Shadow gave your Rush characters Evasive. So the reason I don't love this, in comparison especially, is because the Evasive characters typically have lower strength and willpower because they get the benefit of being evasive. They're hard to get. So if you can get them, they have lower stats because they have the evasive ability. So giving them Rush means that a lot of times they're not really good at hitting anything. Whereas in reverse, with Pan Shadow, giving a Rush character evasive means that the really big strength and willpower can take out the small, evasive characters who are giving you trouble. So I do not think that this Peter Pan is nearly as good as Peter Pan's Shadow. Unfortunately, I gave Peter a 2.
And I also gave him a 2.
Not very good, sadly. Especially if that's super rarity. Next up, we have Pico. I don't know for sure. It's been a long time since I watched this movie, and I was only half paying attention.
What is it from?
Helpful Toucan. This is from Encanto.
Okay.
It is a 3-2-1 for 2 inkable, and it has no abilities, just stats, which, as we've discussed, are not very good. This is, in fact, a 1. Sorry, Pico. Next up is TikTok, ever-present pursuer, not handy application that's questionable for the U.S. government. This is an alligator, in fact. This is a 4-7-1 for 6 inkable. It's evasive. Again, we're talking just stats here, nothing really helpful. I also gave this a 1.
I guess that one would be good with Rush.
This would be good with Rush. Here comes a fast alligator. Would you give it?
I gave it a 1. I had to find it.
Moving on, we have Ursula, Mad Sea Witch. This is a 2-cost inkable character. It's a 1-3-1 with Challenger 2. So it's exactly the purple parallel to Prince Eric from Chapter 1. I think this is a good card to have in purple. Obviously fits because it can be shifted on for the, I believe it's the next Ursula that we are going to see. I think this card could be pretty good. I think hitting things in Amethyst is generally where you want to be. Being able to Pinocchio the turn after this feels pretty good. I think that it just kind of checks a lot of boxes. I think this is a solid playable if you're pairing purple with a color that doesn't have removal like steel or ruby. So I think Mad Sea Witch gets a 3.
I agreed with 3.
Excellent. Next we're moving on to a legendary here. We have Ursula, Sea Witch Queen. She is a 4-7-3 for 7. Those are numbers. She also has Shift for 5. She has the ability of Now I Am the Ruler. When this character quests, you get to exert chosen character. Pretty strong. And then the next ability she has and final ability is You'll Listen to Me. Other characters can exert to sing songs.
Is that what Ursula sounds like?
Yes. I think that this card is pretty good, especially in like a tempo forward deck, being able to exert characters and then pick them off with your rush characters feels really oppressive if you can let that happen. She packages obviously extremely nicely with Emerald, giving you just your pick of the litter for Ursula's to shift with. I think this card will see some play. Most assuredly, I do not think it's a bomb even for the set, because I just don't think it's in that like top few best cards of the set, but it's freaking close. I gave it a 4.
And I gave it a 5.
So that gives it a 4.5, which I think is totally valid for this particular card. Yen Sid is next. 2 legendaries back-to-back here in Amethyst. This is a 1-3-1 for 2 that is in fact inkable. He's a powerful sorcerer. He has 2 abilities. 1 is Timely Intervention. When you play this character, if you have a character named Magic Broom in play, you may draw a card. We talked about the play Broom on 1, and then play Yen Sid on 2, and draw a card. Pretty good. And then you have the second ability of Arcane Study. Well, you have 2 or more Broom characters in play. This character gets 2 more lore when it quests. I like that a lot. I think that Yen Sid hits the right boxes for a cheap legendary, one of the most inexpensive legendaries we've seen. And I think he absolutely does enough that in the Broom deck, this is a super duper welcome addition. I don't think the deck was viable even a little bit before Yen Sid, and I think the deck is still going to struggle in core constructed, but I think it's much closer to a reality because of him. So I gave him a 4.
And I gave him a 4 as well.
A solid build around, to be sure. Next up, our first song for Amethyst here is Poor Unfortunate Souls, a classic. It is a 2-cost inkable song. It allows you to return chosen character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to that player's hand. So this is kind of like Befuddle, a little bit more flexible, a lot more expensive, but can be sung. And by a lot, I mean double the cost. So just to go off on a minor tangent here, when I say a lot more, it's because you're doubling. When you go from 2 to 3, you are not doubling. The biggest jump in any game is 1 to 2 in a TCG. So just be aware that, going from that 1 to 2 is a lot. Obviously going from 0 to 1, quite a lot as well. Then from there, just obviously the curve falls off. pretty strongly. So this being twice as expensive as Befuddle is in fact a liability. I think the decks that want Befuddle will want that over this, though I do think that this is a possible playable in terms of maybe like an Amber Amethyst like tempo-y kind of deck. We haven't seen something like that yet, but it is very possible that that is something that could happen. This has the hallmarks of a playable. I'm just not entirely convinced yet. I gave it a 3 because I see the possibilities.
And I gave it a 2.
I think that's about where it needs to be, at a 2.5. Next up is a Next Sing Together song. This is second star to the right. It is a 10 cost, uninkable, sing together 10. So again, a collection of characters. You and or your teammates can use your characters, exert them all, as long as they total 10 or more in cost. They can sing this card for you. And it allows a chosen player, you can choose any player you want.
So you can mill somebody.
You win with mill to draw 5 cards.
With Ursula, draw 10.
I think that this is a really hard card to play with. I think that it is a very powerful card. It's kind of like Lucky Dime in that you probably will never play more than 1 or 2 of these. But because 10 cost uninkable in your hand is a huge liability. Like, I would be surprised to see more than 1 of these in a deck. It can definitely get you back into a game, and goodness, if you're packaging this with Emerald and using 3-drop Ursula to sing this and draw 10, goodness gracious, that is definitely a condition to win a game with Mill. But I think that this card is hard to use, but I think it is powerful. I gave it a 4, though I hem and haw on that. That's between a 3 and a 4 for me, but I'll just round up here because I do think that this has the hallmark to be a playable sing together.
And I gave it a 4. I like the card.
Next up, I like how your answers are just I like it or I do not like it.
I like it or I don't.
You gotta give me more meat on that one.
You do all the talking.
I know, I'm just saying. Next up is Swing Into Action. This is a 1-cost inkable action, of course. Chosen character gains rush this turn. So this card is an entire card you have to use to give an ability to a character that's frequently stapled onto a character already. Mm-hmm. So giving up an entire card for what is part of a card is not a good deal in this game, even in Limited. Unless it was like desperation, you really had to play it for ink or something. It's an inkable, right? So it's always going to do something. Yeah. But to me, this is a hallmark of a 1.
It's a 1. I'd rather have it on an item or on a character. Obviously.
Some way to recur it or stapled on. It should be an in addition thing, not the entire thing, right? Like that's like coming to dinner and getting some bread. I love bread. Bread is often my favorite part of a meal, but it's not an entire meal.
Okay.
I'd be sad if all I got was bread. That's what prisoners get, is bread. Next up, we have Ursula's Plan. This is a 3-cost uninkable action. Each opponent chooses and exerts one of their characters. Those characters can't ready at the start of their next turn. So it freezes a character of the opponent's choice. The reason we're seeing these and the benefit to seeing these is they play around the ward ability because the player who controls the ward character is choosing. So it is not being chosen by you, the opponent, and multiplayer, each opponent. So that can be a multi-effect there. In Core Constructed, even though this can play around ward, I don't think there is enough card here to do anything. If there was like some good ward cards, and there are in Limited, I could see this being playable. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 1.
I think that's about right. Next up, we have Mystical Rose. This is a 2-cost inkable item. It has the ability to dispel the entanglement. You can banish this item. Chosen character named Beast gets +2 lore when it quests this turn. If you have a character named Belle in play, you move up to 3 damage counters from chosen character to chosen opposing character. So obviously you can do 2 things if you have a Belle and a Beast in play, which makes sense flavor-wise for the Rose here. I think that this card is very akin to the Lantern we saw in the last set, where if you have a Genie and a Jafar, it does something. On the whole, I think that card was a little bit stronger because it drew cards. This is really only playable, I think, with Beast Relentless if you wanted to try to win and not just be like the 1-turn kill combo. I think that this is probably a card you might consider if you need it just feels thin no matter what. Like, it's possible, but I don't think it's good. I gave it a 2 on the very outside chance you might be able to do something with it.
And I gave it a 1.
Again, sounds about right. Next up, we have Rose Lantern. Some more good art here with the roses. This is an item that costs 2 and is inkable. It has the ability of Mystical Petals. You may pay 2 ink, exert this card, and move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. This is so much ink to do something so minimal. I give it a 1.
And a 1.
Not really much to say there. Triton's Trident. This is a 2-cost inkable item with the symbol of power as an ability. You may banish this item. Chosen character gets 1 strength this turn for each card in your hand. These one-shot items really aren't doing it for me. I don't think there's enough of a burst here to mean much. Again, this effect now we see stapled onto characters. We saw one earlier. We will see one again. I don't think this is very good. I give it a 1.
And I give it a 1.
Next up is Casa Madrigal, our first location out of Amethyst. This is a 1 move cost, 6 willpower location. It is a 1 inkable cost, so a low cost to play it. And it has the ability of on Our Home. It also does not generate lore. The Our Home ability is, at the start of your turn, if you have a character here, gain 1 lore. If you have 9 characters here, you gain 1 lore. Just to be clear, because I've heard that question come up a couple of times. It's not for each character here. It's if you have 1. It's only checking 1 or 0. It's not checking beyond that. So you could have 58. I don't think that that's very good. Donnie, who do you think Sapphire Ruby Popsicle Bounce deck will still be decent with Chapter 4 out? I played against it today. It is still good, Donnie, who. I think it is still good. I think it got some really good pieces of the puzzle, and we'll certainly get to them with Ruby. I think cards like Brawl really make it a lot less awkward to have to play like Rush Queens and things, and I think that new Sisu that's a 3-cost uninkable is absolutely incredible. So I think that card has a lot of legs. Also, Vitalisphere into Mulan, that plagued you earlier when we were playing at League today. Mm-hmm. I think that deck still has a lot of legs, absolutely. Oh yeah, of course. Thanks for asking the question. Thank you so much for the follow. Really appreciate you. I think that the Casa Madrigal, it's cheap. It could maybe do something. It's got a lot to whack on your first turn. So it might stick around long enough for you to move somebody there. Just kind of like, I play 1-drop, and then the next turn I'll play another 1-drop and move 1. Like, possibly. I give it a 2.
I give it a 1.
It could be a good limited card. I don't know. I'm excited to try the limited for this set. Ursula's Lair is our next card here. Our final Amethyst card of the review. This is Eye of the Storm. It's a 3-cost uninkable. It is 6 willpower, 2 move cost. It does have 1 passive lure, and it has 2 abilities. The first being Slippery Halls. Whenever a character is banished in a challenge while here, you may return them to your hand. Again, this is like the Dr. Facilier, the Bruno ability we just saw. Pretty interesting. Seat of Power is the second ability. Characters named Ursula gain +1 lure when they quest while here. We don't get that like free to move Ursulas here, like the Sorcerer's Tower is the free to move brooms here. I don't know as though this card does enough. It's uninkable. It's like really like there's a lot of cost prohibited kind of thing. Like it's a deck building restriction. It's a movement cost restriction. It's not super powerful once you play it. Maui can smack it down. And again, I know that's kind of the hallmark right now for locations. I think it's a lot of stuff and not a lot of substance. I gave it a 1.
I also gave it a 1.
Excellent.
Not a lot of good items and such in Amethyst.
No, we have an Excel sheet next to this picture, and Sam's is just a column of 1s. It's 4, which was second star to the right, and then nothing but 1s the rest of the way. So there you go. Second star to the right, and nothing but 1s. So I'm going to scroll down on our sheet and just take a moment to thank everybody who's hanging with us during the live stream. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all of you out there. Hope you're enjoying the set review. Same to you out there on YouTube. Same to you out there on the podcast. If you're not familiar with the IllumiNation podcast, we are everywhere you can get your podcast. You can see it up in the corner there. We are everywhere you get a podcast from. If you're looking for a podcast, I definitely recommend it because I'm a part of it. But also, we work really hard on it. We think there's a lot of substance there, and it's not a terribly long podcast. About 20 minutes an episode. And we tackle some topics that'll get you from... If you're newish to TCGs / pretty experienced TCGs and you want to kind of take that step, we're talking about a lot of topics that are foundational and fundamental to the game. So I think it is a good pick up and listen to. If you can tolerate us it is probably worth at least giving us a check out. We appreciate the support. And this will be up as a bonus episode, of course. And if you're listening to it as a bonus episode, thanks so much. We really appreciate it immensely. And we're going to start out on Emerald here. Do you want me to keep going through these?
Yeah.
Okay. Next we have, I didn't know if you wanted to start reading them or not. Next we have Cricky. This is a 3/4/3 for 5 inkable. It's a lucky cricket. We are spreading good fortune with this one. When you play this character, your other characters get +3 strength this turn. So Cricky comes down and does a lot. Mm-hmm. This is a big, big card. It has good stats. I think that on the whole, its downside is it is Medusa-able. But I do like the fact that you can have like some things sitting there that all of a sudden you can pivot and start. If you're losing tempo, you can regain it. And then hopefully try to stay ahead on the board and questing. I really, really think that Cricky has potential. I just don't know if we've seen a deck that really is like, this is definitely where Cricky lives. But I think there's a lot of power printed on this card. I gave Cricky a 3.
I also gave him a 3.
Excellent. Next up, we have Sam's favorite card in the set. This is Diablo, Devoted Herald. Diablo is a 2/2/1 for 3 uninkable. Has the shift for discarded actions. This is the alternate shift. This card gets a 6. It is evasive. And
stupid.
It has the ability of circle far and wide. During each opponent's turn, whenever they draw a card while this character is exerted, you may draw a card. Have I done yet?
No, red will be next.
Red is next. You're in luck. So, good timing here. Yes. Yep. We go, the set reviews we do in alphabetical order. This is a great question. I'm glad you called that out. Thank you for that. Oh, of course. Thank you for sticking around for it. We really appreciate it.
Is it in alphabetical?
Yeah.
Is that how they determined it? I didn't even realize that.
Amber AM, Amethyst, or I guess AMB, then AME, then E, then R.
Never
then
realized
SA,
that. I just thought that's how they chose to do it.
You special. So, Diablo here, I played today at League. I played against Sam last night and testing it. And this card is absolutely the card that you need to be prepared for when you play. This card is defining the game. People are playing more evasives to deal with it. People are playing more removal on the cheap to deal with it. This card is unbelievably oppressive. I played a game earlier where I had at least 16 cards in my hand playing this card. It was completely un-okay. It's maybe a 6.5. This card is so unbelievably powerful. It is absolutely public enemy #1 for the meta. It's so strong. It is really, really oppressive. I can't push that hard enough. This card, if you can't deal with it, it is a huge issue. It triggers Bucky. So now we have a clean 3 that we really like on Bucky. We have another 3 that I think is pretty good coming up a little later. I mean, this card is just awesome. It's so strong.
It's actually a good legendary.
It is a very powerful legend. It's probably the best legendary in the set, honestly. This card's insane. I am only allowed to give up to a 5. Unlike Hyper Hippo, I gave it a 6.5. You think Diablo feels like a 3.5? Yeah, I was having a great time with my opponents playing Popsicles and Hirams. I was having a great time with my opponents Rapunzeling and drawing cards. It was great. I had so many more cards than they did, and then I was able to use my steel removal. It was just nasty. Yes, yeah. I was... yeah, this card's gross, but Brawl's super good. Like, Brawl just deals with this. You need to have, if you're playing Ice Block, we'll get to that one too, of course. Ice Block and Sisu is a really nice combo to deal with Diablo. You have ways, but yeah. Didn't use Brawl, wow. Yeah, this card's nasty. It's nasty good. I gave it a 5.
I also gave it a 5, unfortunately.
Moving on to Tiny Diablo, Maleficent Spy. This is a 1/2/1 for 1 inkable with the ability of Scout Ahead. When you play this character, you may look at each opponent's hand. I think that this card is obviously not great stats, but it gives you some information, which is useful in green. Like, I do like this because there are times I'll deploy an Ursula just to see what my opponent's hand is, even though I know they're not playing songs really. So I think that this can be pretty good, and a good impactful effect. I just think that this is in contention with Pegasus right now on the 1-drop slot for shifting. But I think it is, and Robin Hood, things like that, depending on what you're building. I think that it's decent, though. Like, it is a decent shift target, to be sure. I give this one a 3. When I arrive at the card, you'll show. All right, cool. I'm looking forward to it. So I give this a 3.
I gave it a 3.
Excellent. Next we have Gunther, 3/3/2 for 4 inkable. Sad-Eyed Puppy is his ability. When this character is challenged and banished, each opponent chooses one of their characters and returns that card to their hand.
What is he from?
Mulan, I believe. No. Yes? No. No. This is Tangled.
Okay.
This is Tangled. This is the back of the Snuggly Duckling when he sneaks them through the secret passage.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Give me Disney trivia on this one. You're supposed to be good at this one. This is your wheelhouse, the Disney trivia part. So I think that this card is like fine for limited probably, but likely not going to do enough in constructed. We've seen this on Cruella before. Like, it doesn't really do anything, so I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 2.
Excellent. Moving on, we have Gus, Champion of Cheese. This is a 2/3/1 for 2. I gave it a 1.
I gave it a 2.
I don't know why, because you gave the other one a 1.
I don't know.
Moving on to Hades.
I liked him, I guess.
Yeah, this is
cute.
this is like a 0. Yeah, basically, our scale only goes down to 1. Hades, Double Dealer. This is a 3/3/1 for 4 inkable with the ability of here's the trade-off. You can exert this character, then banish one of your other characters. Then you may play a character with the same name as the banished character for free. So again, this is like any magic broom will do. You can switch with any magic broom. I don't know. I think this card needs to find a home. I think once this card finds a home, it's going to be interesting. It's expensive. It's on the expensive side, and it gets answered by quite a few things in that range of ink. It's a tough one for me. I haven't seen the deck, and I think it totally has the upside right now. I definitely mark it as a build around. I put it at a 2 because I don't think there's a home for it until somebody comes along and really is just like, oh, by the way, here's how you use this card.
Yeah.
Green Amber?
I was a little more generous. I gave it a 3 because I think it could be in the right deck. Really
Yeah,
messed up,
I think 3 is probably more correct if we see it. We'll see. I'm excited for it to be a thing because it's a very cool card. Next up, one of my favorite cards in this color. This is Hey Hey, Bumbling Rooster. This is a 2/3/2 for 3 inkable with the ability of Fatten You Up. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their inkwell than you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exert it. Yeah, this card is really... Like, if you play trading card games, you see this card and go, holy cow, this is exactly... Like, this is a card. There's cards in Magic the Gathering that do this. Knight of the White Orchid comes to mind first. But this card is so important in Lorcana because if you're on the draw, this helps you kind of break the on-the-draw setback that you have naturally. So being able to break tempo with this card is really strong. Like, this on your turn 4 is crazy good. No, but we haven't seen a mid-rangey style Emerald deck yet. Like, I mean, there are some flavors of the Bucky decks that are definitely mid-rangey, but we haven't seen a deck that wants to take advantage of this. But this effect doesn't look flashy. Super powerful with what it does. It is super duper good. It is 100% a strong staple in my opinion. I gave it a 4.
I also gave it a 4.
Yeah, if you know TCGs, you know that that's crazy good. If you're not as familiar with TCGs, it doesn't look too appealing, but trust me, card is nuts. Super good card. Yes, very good against any flavor of Sapphire, for sure. Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Hera, Queen of the Gods. She's a 1/3/2 for 3 inkable. She has Ward and 2 additional abilities here. Protective Goddess is the first. Your character's name Zeus, gain Ward. And you are a true hero. Your character's name Hercules, gain Evasive. So this calls out 2 different cards, but it has to have those 2 cards in the deck to really get a payoff. Otherwise, you have a 1/3/2. Not the best stat line in the world. It kind of gets gobbled up pretty easily. Like, we see 1/3/1s for 1. This costs 3 for 1 additional lore, and then the ward, and then the call out, double ability. I don't think this is going to make any waves. I know a lot of people talk about like an alternate format where you play a movie with no color restrictions instead of playing color restricted. Maybe that would be a thing then in your Hercules theme decks. But in terms of core constructed, I don't think this kind of cuts the mustard. I give it a 2.
I also gave it a 2.
Quite expensive for what it does, unfortunately.
The other half of the art.
Yes, this is Gus connected to Jacques in the connector art here. Another piece of fun artwork. I love that. Yeah, definitely. It feels like it has the hallmark to be good. Like, what is this setting up for? is a great question, too. Right now, it's not doing much, but definitely feels like it could. Jacques, Connoisseur of Climbing, 1 for 2 for 3 inkable, with the ability of Sneaky Idea. When you play this character, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. So we saw this attached to Rourke in the last set, John Silver in the first set. The giving Reckless is kind of like Green's form of removal, outside of the like already damaged removal clause. So Jacques being a 1/4/2 is a decent enough stat line. Unfortunately, it's mimmed down, but it's still a decent stat line. Like, this card is far and away better than Gus. And
sometimes you just have to shut off a quester.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good tempo card, and getting it to smash into something they really don't want to smash it into, it could be a really good setup card. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but I see a world where you could play this card, so I give it a 3.
I stuck with a 3.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. Jasmine, Desert Warrior, maybe 1.5. That's fair. Desert Warrior is a 3/3 for 2 with 5 uninkable cost. She has an ability called Cunning Maneuver. When you play this character and whenever she is challenged, each opponent chooses and discards a card. So, kind of like Lucifer, kind of like Belle, worse than either one on both sides of the ability, but has both pieces together. Unfortunately, uninkable in this case. I think it's not fantastic. Yeah, it's got the Flynn Rider Merfolk ability attached, and those characters are much cheaper than Jasmine is, and she comes in and gets a card. If they have a card by 5, if you're playing discard, it's like, definitely big stat Merfolk. That's a good way to put it.
I'm a little higher on her than you.
Yeah, I'm not big on this card. I think she's just okay. I gave her a 2 because I don't think she's going to see any play with that 5 cost uninkable.
Yeah, I gave her a 3, but I think if she was inkable, I think she'd be really good.
I agree. That's the thing I said when I looked at, during set champs, when I looked at Lucifer, every time he was in my hand almost, and I was like, why are you uninkable? Why are you uninkable? Did some good work sometimes. Sometimes I was like, Lucifer, yes, and I won those games, right? Like, this is
She also probably, we heard this earlier, probably each removal because nobody wants to challenge into her.
Possibly.
But she's already done something.
Yeah, so. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask. Next we have Megara, Captivating Cynic. I'm going to call her Meg for the other versions of her we have here. 3/6/2 for 3 uninkable. She has the ability of Shady Deal. When you play this character, choose and discard a card or banish this character. So she can't do the I have no cards in hand, so therefore there's no drawback piece. That kind of stinks. Also, the 3, obviously, is susceptible to certain things that I don't love. But the stat line is redunculous. Like, Steel looks at this card and cringes. Just like, ugh, 3/6? Coming down that fast? Like, that's not okay. I think that she has some, perhaps, implication. I gave her a 3. I could see a world where the stats get her there.
I gave her a 3.
It's interesting, especially if there's a benefit to discarding cards in the future, but outside of just like Chernobog. Right. You see it? See? Yep. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. So I think this could be an enabler. Could be good. Next up we have Meg yet again. This is Meg Liberated One. This is a 4/4/2, very popular stat line. It's a 5 cost inkable. Take that, Jasmine. She has Ward, and she has the ability people always do crazy things. Whenever you play a character named Hercules, you may ready this character. It's again feels like that she's with Hera in the Hercules theme deck, where it's like the stat line is decent, but it's not. We're not playing the stats game in Core Constructed most of the time. Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just like, what Hercules do you want to play? Like, you're gonna play a 6-drop Hercules. There's one good one, I guess, but it's like, I don't think it's doing enough here to really be good. I gave it a 3. I think it's a little generous. I do think this one's worse than the previous one by a decent clip.
I think it should probably be a 2.
Yeah, we'll change it to a 2. So that's Captivating Cynic.
No, Liberated One.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So we'll make that 2. 2.
She could be really good in a build around, but
2. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not super great there. Moving on, we have Pain, 2/4/2 for 3. We've seen this before. Not super good. Might be good and limited. I gave it a 2.
Mm-hmm.
Panic, Immortal Sidekick, 3/3/2 for 4 inkable with the ability of reporting for duty. While this character is exerted, if you have a character named Pain in play, your villain characters can't be challenged. This is not a villain, so just challenge this first, knucklehead. I gave this a 2.
Yeah, me too, even though I think it's a 1.
Moving on, we have a card that is in fact not so bad. This is Pegasus Cloud Racer.
I saw you playing this today, and it looked pretty nasty.
Yeah, Pegasus is on point. Yeah, that's true. There are some implications there, absolutely. This is a 3/3/2 for 5 inkable. It has shift 3 and evasive, and has the ability of hop on. When you play this character, if you use shift to play him, your characters gain evasive until the start of your next turn.
I don't understand why green got 2 really, really good
This is a
shift characters.
This is a nutso uncommon. Like, what in the world? Like, this looks like... if I had read this and somebody said guess the rarity, I would have put this on super rare. Like, it's just crazy strong. Green wants to be doing this, right? Like, it gives you a turn to do all of your things. Like, you get to do all the business, right? Why is Pete a super? Exactly. We're going to come up to Pete and go, why is this... I think they just screwed up. I think they don't want to tell anybody they screwed up. Pegasus was supposed to be the super rare. Pete was supposed to be the uncommon, and they just accidentally screwed up those 2 rarities. That's my tinfoil hat theory, and they're just not going to tell anybody. 2 P cards, it's just, they're both green. It's just, one's terrible and one's real good. Like, just feels... I'm glad everybody has access to this Pegasus, though. Like, man, this card's really good. I think it's pretty on point. Today it was just nasty. I was doing some pretty unfair things with it, being able to quest on turns I shouldn't, being able to quest with Bucky when I shouldn't because of the evasive. It's a really, really oppressive card. I liked it quite a bit. I give this one a 4.
I gave it a 4.
I think it is quite good. Are we talking about Pete, or are we talking about Pegasus? We have Pegasus again. This is, I was being aggressive today. Okay. Next is Pegasus. Yeah. Little Pegasus. This is the shift target here. This is a 1/1/1 for 1 inkable with evasive. So he's like all the time evasive. So we saw this with Pascal, but it was conditional. Pascal got paid quite a bit in the decks he got played in. I think this card's got the hallmark of being very good. It's Sisuable, the 3-drop Sisu in red, which we'll talk about. I think that this card is susceptible to getting hit by that, and I think that evasives, this is one of the cards that's leading to evasives being the order of the day right now in core constructed, at least out of the gate. And it's not surprising, right? With the new meta, the aggressive, very proactive decks tend to be the things that come out first, and then everybody else figures out how to react, and then the meta kind of shapes itself around that as we move through it. So we'll see the aggro deck, we'll see the mid-range deck that answers the aggro deck, and then the control deck will come mop up the mid-range deck and figure out the tools it needs to play well against the aggro decks, and we'll all live in harmony once again, most likely. I think this Pegasus is pretty good. I also gave it a 4 just because that little stat line is quite nasty.
Yep, I gave it a 4.
Excellent. Moving on to Pete, speaking of. This is somehow a super rare. It's a 2/3/1 for 2 uninkable. This is Pete, Born to Cheat. He has the ability of... It's a 5 right around the corner. The ability of I clobber you whenever this character quests. While he has 5 strength or more, return chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. Right, exactly. Welcome to trading card games, right? This is a terrible card. It is significantly worse than the Kit Cloud Kicker we saw in the previous set. I think Kit is much better than Pete is. I don't understand why this card exists. I don't understand why it is a super rare. It just feels... We've seen 2/3. We were giving 1s to 2/3/1s for 2 inkable. And this is just like, has some text in a box. Oof. He is a musketeer.
Is he?
He is a musketeer.
Oh, no.
He doesn't fit in the deck, though. I don't know why they also gave us a green musk to super random. Everything about this card's stinky
But
poo-poo.
you're not going to play green.
That's a 1
So you don't
for
need
me.
it. It's a 1.
Oop.
No, you don't need that.
You got me. Next up is Pete Rotten Guy. This is a 1/5/2, no abilities. It is a 4-cost inkable. I also gave this a 1. I just don't think it's quite good enough.
He's also a musketeer.
Yep. And what did you give him?
I gave him a 1. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I just thought you knew that.
I know it, but the audience does not. Next up, we have, this is a talking card for sure, Prince Philip, Vanquisher of Foes. This is a 6/6/3 for 9 inkable. It is shift 6. It has evasive, and it has the ability of swift and sure. When you play this character, banish all opposing damaged characters. So I think that this card has the ability to be crazy good. I think that the cost is a little scary, and you need to. Thankfully, he's in green, right? You can shift onto morph. I don't know if the other Prince Philip is quite that good, or something you're really super interested in playing outside of a dedicated hero deck. But the fact this is Floodborn means that you get to play Buckies, you get to play Tinks if you're playing like Green Steel, so you can live the dream of Tink into Philip and just completely decimate a board. I think this card has some pretty crazy implications. It's definitely a playable. It's just kind of a how playable question. So I think that it's going to be a tough road to hoe. If it's stuck in your hand with nothing to do, it looks awful, but it can always be ink, right? Mm-hmm. So it's only ever so bad. I gave this card a 3 because we went back and forth on where it should land, and we decided it should be a 3.5. So you gave it the 4.
I gave it a 4.
Because you like it.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think that it has the ability to be quite good.
Higher than a 3.5, but
we'll see.
That's not how the system works.
Time will tell. This land in the powerful... that lands in powerful that will not be played, you think? Well, that's a good question, right? Next up is Prince Philip, Warden of the Woods. This is a 3/4 for 4 uninkable, and it has the ability of Shining Beacon. Also Quester 2, if I didn't mention that. Your other hero characters gain ward. Other hero characters gain ward. So you need 2 of these to protect each other and keep things moving. I think that we
saw it with Aurora, and that didn't have the
hero
limited hero. Yeah. And she doesn't really get played.
She doesn't get played much. I think that this card, again, there could be a world that it lives in potentially. I just don't know where it is. I was down on this one a little bit just because of the uninkable and the cost. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 3.
So it comes in at a 2.5.
I mean, I think it's worse than the last one.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, without a doubt. Next up is the Fates. This is a 2/1 for 1 inkable with the ability of All Will Be Seen. When you play this character, look at the top card of each opponent's deck. Not the best thing ever. Like, you can only look at opponent's deck, so you can't like look at your own for Brunoing purposes. Like, really doesn't do a whole lot. I gave it a 2 because it might be relevant and limited.
I give it a 1 because I don't like it.
Yep. Let's move on to a card I like a lot. The Muses, Proclaimers of Heroes. This is a 2/4/1 for 4 inkable with ward, and it has the ability of the Gospel Truth. Whenever you play a song, you may return chosen character with strength 2 or less to their player's hand. Yeah, I think that this particular Muses is very strong. I watched it in like Amber Emerald songs, and it was just like picking up Aerial Spectacular Singers, putting it back down, keeping the opponent off tempo, playing it after playing We Don't Talk About Bruno, and then this, it feels crazy oppressive if you can get the Muses going. It has ward to protect itself. I think this card is pretty darn awesome. I don't know if it does, like, you need other cards, right? Like, it does lean on having to have songs, so there are hands you can draw this and it's not going to do a whole heck of a lot for you, so it's not amazing, but it's got good enough stats, and it is inkable, so it's kind of breaks the green curse a little bit on that one. So I gave this one a 3.
I gave it a 4.
It's a very cool card. Next up is Tor, who's a florist. It's another Tangled card. This is a 4/7/1 for 5 inkable, and it is just stats, ergo, it is a 1.
It's a 1. You said it is, not just I gave it. So
I gave it a 1. It is a 1. Next is Zeus, Mr. Lightning Bolts. This is a 0/5/2 for 3 inkable with the ability of target practice. Whenever this character challenges another character, he gets strength equal to the strength of chosen character. That can be you, that can be an opponent, it can be anybody. A teammate, if it's so applicable. So there's a lot going on with this Zeus. It's a really interesting card. I I think that it has potential. It's just, again, one of those cards that feels a little divided, where it's like, is this a quester? Is it a challenger? Is it a... He's flexible? What is it exactly? I think it's a little confused. I don't know if it breaks through, particularly in core constructed, but I gave it a 3 because I'm interested to see if anybody wants to do something with it on the right spot in the curve.
I gave it a 3 as well.
Our first action of Emerald is Dodge. Chosen character gains Ward and Evasive until the start of your next turn. I don't want... This is another card like the card in Amethyst that gives Rush. I don't want to have a whole card spent on this particular ability, even though it is inkable. I just don't think that you're going to want to play this particular card. Maybe in Limited if you really need to give something Ward or Evasive, but that feels thin to me even. Like, I wouldn't be happy to play this in a deck other than it's inkable in Limited, so I gave it a 1.
I gave it a 1.
Next up is Make the Potion. This is a 2-cost uninkable action with the ability of choose 1, banish chosen item, deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character. I think that, remember, if it's an inkable card in this game, it's already a modal card, right? You can choose 2 modes. You can choose ink, or you can choose to play it. I think that this card, being able to banish an item, is something we haven't seen in green yet, just outright, outside of Wildcat.
It's faster, because Wildcat has to survive a turn.
Right, and this has the flexibility of being able to put some damage on. Emerald characters that are being played right now don't have the best ability to put 2 damage on a chosen character. Oh yeah, Bestill My Heart, or whatever the song.
Oh, okay.
The Clarabelle song.
Okay. Which doesn't get
Has
played.
Set My Heart, thank you,
Okay.
with all the T's. Thank you. Yep. So that doesn't get played. It's a song and it's inkable. This isn't. So this is just as modal as Has Set My Heart. So yeah, I don't think this is a very good card. I could see maybe somebody wanting it, possibly. So I gave it a 2. I still think it's just relegated to the world of Limited for the most part, if you even want it there. Next is Under the Sea. It's our Sing Together song for Emerald. It's a Sing Together 8. So it is an 8-cost uninkable, and it allows you to put all opposing characters with strength 2 or less on the bottom of their players' decks in any order. I saw this card doing some really nasty things paired with Amber, being able to do the Kita into play Sing Under the Sea, and just tuck everything underneath. Pretty oppressive. I think that play pattern is not ridiculous. I think it is strong if you're going to play those colors, just because you, outside of this and Bruno, you don't have a lot of removal for cards on board. It's just more tempo-based plays like Mother Knows Best. But I think that this card's pretty awesome. I think it makes that deck viable. If you want to play that like Amber Emerald song style deck, I think this is the card you're looking for to kind of get you over the edge. I think that that this is probably a 3 out of my...
Yep, I agree with a 3.
I don't know if it's going to be a 4, but it's very possible that it could be. Next is Ursula's Trickery. This is a 1-cost uninkable action. Each opponent chooses or may choose and discard a card. For each opponent who does not, you draw a card. I'm not a big fan of cards that let an opponent have a choice. They will choose the thing you don't want every time, so I am not a fan of that style of card. I would Green Be Prepared. It definitely can be for Under the Sea. Trickery, I gave a 1.
Same.
Not a lot to talk about here. There is here, though. I think this card is quite good. We don't talk about Bruno. It is a 5-cost inkable song.
That was played against me today.
That returns a chosen character to that player's hand, and then that player discards a card at random. So if you're a Magic the Gathering player, there are a couple effects that are similar to this. Recoil from Invasion way back a million years ago in Magic, and then more modern, I guess, Magic was Dinrova Horror from like the Return to Ravnica set block. Again, still a million years ago, though. More modern, I said. I didn't say like terribly modern, but both of those are just they discard a card of their choice. This is a discard at random. So how does this work in real life? It's the same where it's you either like fan out your cards face down and you let your opponent pick one.
Today my opponent did dice.
Roll
So it said
dice.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then just roll a dice.
Right. Typically you'll roll, yeah. Right. They either pick upside down cards or like if you have 3 cards in hand or 6 cards in hand, this is roll a d6, That's typically the way I've done it. Coming from Netrunner, that's the way we did it when we accessed the corporation's hand. Was always random dice roll just because you want to make sure it's as random as possible. So this card is pretty nasty, especially in Emerald, where they probably won't have much of a hand. It's often just this card gone now.
Yeah.
And it's unconditional. It deals with all the big things that are troublesome. So I could definitely see a world where even like the green steel decks want to play a couple copies of Bruno just because it is unconditional. I like that a lot. I think this card's very solid. For the set, I gave it a 5. I think it's really, it might be the best song, period, in the set.
I agreed with a 5.
Very good card. Next up is one of the tough cards to evaluate in the set. For sure, this is Hidden Ink Caster.
I feel like people either love this card or hate it.
Yeah, that's true. It is a 2-cost uninkable item. It has 2 abilities. The first is Fresh Ink. When you play this item, draw a card. We've seen this a lot on cheap items. The next ability, though, we've never seen before, and it is Unexpected Treasure. All cards in your hand count as having the inkable symbol. So this card, in the right hands, is a powerful card to include in a deck.
Yeah.
I think that the average player who's building a deck is going to look at this card and make bad decisions because this card is in their deck. I think this card is very it's a skill tester card, if that makes sense. I think that if you're a good player, you understand how to leverage a card that breaks a cardinal rule of a trading card game. And if it is powerful, it'll be very powerful for you. If you're an inexperienced TCG player, or perhaps like a lot of us, a little greedier than we should be, you will probably use this card to your detriment in a lot of cases. Yes. Yeah, and this is a very complex card. It breaks a cardinal rule and it's on a common, which is interesting.
That's true.
It's I think that, yeah, exactly. Sapphire gets away with it. Now Emerald's trying to get away with it. We'll see if it works. For now, I put it at a 2 just because I think the bad decisions are going to push people away from it initially. I think once it finds a home, though, it goes straight up.
Yeah. I put a 2, but I can definitely see a 3.
For sure. This has potential. I just think it needs to fall in the right hands. Next is Sign Contract. Whenever an opponent plays a song, you may draw a card. This is a 2-cost inkable item. I think that you get to draw a card, right? It replaces itself. Unlike Sign Contract, where it only replaces itself if the opponent plays a song. I think that while songs are very popular, there's no guarantee that a song will be played while this card is out. I think that it's more falls into the world of sideboard. And again,
This
it's
would be an
modal.
awesome sideboard card if
Right. This is a modal
sideboards
card.
were a thing.
It can be ink, but I just don't think you can give up room in your deck. Like, there's only 60 cards you get to put in, and now we're getting to the point now we're well over 800 cards to pick from. I don't think a card like Sign Contract's making it in. And even if it does, even if we see a song-heavy meta, I don't know if drawing a card is the exact best thing you can be doing to counter their songs. Like, I don't know if that's the best answer to what they're
Drawing
doing.
a card's always good.
Well, if I draw a card after they play
And
some
then
songs,
they
and then
do
they whole new
Whole New
world,
World.
I just kind of did nothing, didn't I? And that's what the song decks tend to do right now. So I feel like Sign Contract at the moment is a 1 for me.
I agreed.
I would not play it in limited either because songs just generally aren't as good in limited either. Next up is Vision Slab. This is a 3-cost inkable item. 2 abilities on this one. The first is Danger Revealed. The start of your turn, if an opposing character has damage, gain 1 lore. And then Trapped. Damage counters cannot be removed. Again, very sideboardy. Feels like it's good against the Amber decks that heal. Damage can be moved around, so Amethyst gets around this, but it cannot be healed. I like that it gains lore. Passive lore is always worth looking at because ways to win the game with just playing a card are powerful. We've seen that now. And this card's hard to interact with specifically, so it has a lot of implications. I think it is stronger than Sign Contract. It depends on where this ends up falling. If that deck exists, like this kind of bigger green mid-rangey / control deck comes to fruition, I could definitely see Vision Slab being a thing. Until then, I gave it a 2, but I think once we have that home, like if there ends up being an Emerald Sapphire control deck, this is going to be in it, right? Like, this is going to be a key to drawing cards with Flaversham later, things like that. I think it could be really good. On the whole, I don't think we see it yet, but we'll see. Yeah, it's like a flute is exactly a good way to describe it. Free lure is crazy. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 2 as well.
Cool. We'll see where it goes. Next is Hidden Cove. This is a 1-cost inkable location. Again, apologies for the sideways location. You can't do anything with them on the screen really well. It's got a 1 movement cost, 6 willpower, no passive lore, and it has the ability of revitalizing waters. Your characters get +1 strength and +1 willpower while here. This is kind of like Green's Pride Lands. It's just like a worse version of that. Yeah. It's cheaper, so maybe that ends up being the difference maker if Green really feels like it needs this. I do like the hidden incasters on the artwork. I gave it a 2 because I could see it in limited, like the stat altering mattering, but in constructed, I don't think this does anything. I gave it a 1. Yeah, I think the 1.5 is about right on this one. Next up is Ursula. I also, just as a quick aside, I also just didn't want to just call everything a 1 that was like, and then just relegate to, it's probably a limited card. I didn't want to do that because I've played limited. I don't want to just make limited like the throwaway format. I'm a huge limited Magic player. I love limited Magic, and I think that like just kind of going, it's not good and constructed, so therefore it's a limited card is a little bit reductive. So I tried to make the 2-1 thing matter in my choosing of numbers. Next up is Ursula's Garden. This is the last card for us, final location for Emerald, and then we'll move on to the much anticipated Ruby. So this is a 4-cost inkable location. It's 2 to move, 7 willpower, which is kind of the line there, and it has 1 passive lore. It also has the ability to abandon hope. Promising. While you have an exerted character here, opposing characters get -1 lore when they quest. It's a little too conditional.
I feel like they just challenge it out that turn.
That or they go, okay, I'm going to continue doing the other things I'm doing, like flourishing and, you know what I mean, developing my board, and I'll get to this when I have the time to do it without reaching too far. It's too oppressive to be ignored.
Yeah. That 2 cost is just...
Yeah, it's a lot. So it's like, it can't sit there. Yeah, I like a draft or a sealed. So I would give this a 2. Again, maybe in limited there's some way, like I could see myself possibly playing this in limited because it's inkable and it really is oppressive. Like, cobble together some ways to deal with that.
I gave it 1.
Yeah, I think that it's somewhere in between the two. I don't think we're going to find out in core constructed, I'll tell you that much. And it being a rare, we're not going to see it that much, you know, in a limited format anyway. So, who knows? I'm excited to play some limited, though, for Ursula's return. Got to get on that, for sure. So I'm going to take a quick pause for the set review, and then I'm going to jump into Ruby. Just give me like 30 seconds to clear my throat. All right. That was less than 30 seconds, so good deal. I just wanted to make sure I got some water and you didn't want to hear me drinking. That's just not good. Not good radio, not good TV. What?
I was just telling you.
Oh, you were telling me to scroll down. I thought that was like you're grabbing at something pinchy.
No, it was a keep scrolling.
That's a scrolling. Keep scrolling. All right. Here we go.
Blue Steel. I'm thinking about it because my deck was crappy today.
Hyper Hippo, I was surprised you weren't playing Blue Steel today.
Right?
8 popsicles and you weren't playing it. We'll get there. All right, here we go. Ruby. Our first card on this is Beast Wounded. Beast Wounded is a 2/6/2. You 2 more queens. Fair enough. Oh, yeah, we did talk about that earlier, too. 2/6/2 for 3 inkable. And it has the ability of, that hurts. This character enters play with 4 damage. That's a lot of damage.
That was getting played today.
This card is really good in the Mufasa decks right now because of the damage on it. I don't know as though we're going to... It's a potential with the moving damage. I don't think we've seen that yet, but it's potential there. I think this is like number 9 and 10 for the damaged cards in the Mufasa style deck, because I still think that 1-drop Mulan is, we'll get there, is better. But I put this down as a 3. I think it's pretty solid.
And I put it as a 4.
Yeah, I think 3.5 is about right, and it's exactly what chat thinks as well. So love to see that. Oh, that's why I jumped up. Okay, because I haven't clicked over on the box yet. There we go. Next we have Benja, and this is much worse than the old Benja. This is a 5/3/1 for 4 inkable. No abilities, just stats. It's got it's got big going on with the 5, so perhaps in limited it takes down, like, there's a lot of butts, like, it doesn't hit that 3-6 meg, but it hits quite a few things in limited, so I did give it a 2, because I think you would potentially play this in a red deck.
I gave it a 1. You said stats earlier, it was a 1.
Stats can be, well, once they hit a certain critical mass, it could be good, depending. For limited. It's for limited. Next up is Fa Zhao. Sorry if I said that wrong. Mulan's father. It's been a while since I've watched Mulan. This is a 0/4/1 for 2 inkable with 2 abilities. The first is War Injury. This character cannot challenge. And the second ability is Head of the Household. Has the ability to exert ready chosen character named Mulan. She can't quest for the rest of this turn.
Show.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you, sir. I knew, of course, there's one time I'm not going to be able to pronounce something. Here you come. But appreciate you being here, and I appreciate that. So this character, I think, is in here just to be like kind of you think the legendary Mulan's great? Well, you can use her a second time, too. That's kind of what this character's role is. It is not a playable card, unfortunately. I gave it a 1.
Yep, it is a 1. This card, however.
Yeah, this is Flynn Rider Frenemy. This is a 2/2/1 for 2 inkable. He has the ability of Narrow Advantage. At the start of your turn, if you have a character in play with more strength than each opposing character, gain 3 lore. This card is crazy.
I think I agree, too. I think I would up it after seeing it today.
You'll go to a 5 on that one?
Yeah.
I think that, so the way I'm playing it right now is in Mufasa. I'm playing it, and I also started playing Perdita I was playing Perdita initially at a point last set in Mufasa early on, but I started playing it again because it gets back Flynn Rider now, and it gets back another card we're going to review in a little bit in red as well. So I think that this card has a lot of implications to be really good. You were talking about potentially trying it out.
I think I'm going to try it out. So if you're playing it in Ruby Sapphire, you're playing it in Mufasa, so it can be in a lot of different decks.
Yeah, totally. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think that Flynn Rider is quite good. I think that this card, gaining 3 out of nowhere is crazy scary. Like, there's a lot of passive lore. That's not just a little bit. He just chills and does a lot. Getting down Madam Mim, Fox, like, makes this card super good. Like, there are turns where you kind of have to play down Madam Mim Fox because of your curve. It's like, I have to do this now, and I don't necessarily want to. Flynn Rider makes that A-okay. So I think that this card is quite good. I gave it a 4. It is very close to a bomb.
And I gave it a 5.
So it comes down at the 4.5 mark. Chat also gives it a 5, and I can't fight with that too hard. Speaking of 5s, we have Super Goof. This is a 2/4/1 for 4 inkable with Rush and the ability of Super Peanut Powers. Whenever this character challenges another character, gain 2 lore. This card makes you think twice about questing every turn. Yeah. This card is very scary. This card is very oppressive. I think it is quite powerful. Oh yeah, no, it's way good. This card, playing against it today was so scary. Every time I quested, and it was about, like, there's so many things that I just don't want Ruby to do anymore. Like, if it's on 6, don't Medusa. If it's on 7, don't Beat Prep. If it's 4 now, don't Goofy. If it's, like, 3, don't Sisu. Don't Brawl. Like, it's just, oh, man. It's like walking through a minefield playing against Ruby right now. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's rough. You gotta have it. If you're questing, you need to know what's going to happen after they play Goofy if they're playing Ruby. I give this card a 5. This card's nuts.
I give it a 5.
Yeah. Total bomb. One of the strongest cards, if not the strongest card in the set at this point. Moving on to Hercules, Clumsy Kid. This is a 3/3/1 for 3, uninkable with Rush.
This one's Rafiki.
This is actually Rafiki, as is Red Rafiki. But yes, I agree with chat here. I think that the Clumsy Kid, like, you can do better in Ruby, especially. I think that in terms of core constructed, this card is not good. Playing it in the co-op Ursula deck, it's not good. I didn't enjoy it at all myself. I do think because of the stats and how efficient it is, it could be a playable in limited, so I gave it a 2 just because of limited. But this card is not going to break its way into core constructed by any stretch.
I gave it a 2.
Next up is another Hercules. This one is Daring Demigod. This is a 7/3 for 5, uninkable. No lore on this one. Rush and Reckless, there's just so much going on here that's terrible. It's just like bad-looking Maui in basically every metric. I gave it a 1.
Mm-hmm.
Next is Khan. This is Beloved Steed. 3, 2, 1 for 2 Inkable. You know the rules with Khan. I think that the 3 on the front makes it a limited card. Yep, 2 is where I went with this one.
2.
Excellent. Li Shang, General Sun. 2, 2, 1 for 1 Inkable. And this is a shift card. So, we gave this one a 3, right?
Yep. This is where we give all of our...
This is our shift target cost. For our shift target card gets this. So let's talk about the more interesting one here, which is Li Shang, Valorous General, 3, 2, 1 for 3 Inkable, with the shift of discarding a character card. So the easiest shift of any of the costs, because it's just discard a character card. It's not 2 cards, it's not an action, it's not an item, just a character, which is going to comprise your hand a lot most of the time. And it has the ability to lead the charge. Your characters with 4 strength or more get quest for an additional 1 when in fact they do quest.
Weight set, right?
With weight set, this could be a thing. Like, you kind of can close out a game with it. It's like interesting but not great. I could see a deck that wants this card. The fact that this itself does not have 4 strength is a little suspect to me.
Good with Lumiere.
It's good with Lumiere. I gave it a 3 because I could see a world where people are trying it out. I mean, goodness knows Steadfast has been playing that weight set deck. Shout out to Steadfast.
And I gave it a 3 as well.
Yeah, I think it might see play. We'll see. Doubtful, but possible. Speaking of Lumiere, love this guy. This is Lumiere, Fiery Friend. Lumiere is a 2/2/1 for 2 Inkable, and he has the ability of Fervent Address. Your other characters get +1 strength, just all the time. I think this card is awesome. Playing it in Mufasa, it plays really well with Perdita. You can get back... Oh, I like both. In Mufasa right now, I'm playing both. I like getting this back with Perdita as protection from Sisu.
He's annoying with Flynn Rider because he pumps everything.
Exactly. He plays really nicely with this in Mufasa. Definitely not as good in the other Ruby-style decks as Flynn Rider is, and I think that he's just not quite as good. I think our score reflects that here, but I do think that this card is very annoying. It's very oppressive. It can do a lot. Like, that 1 strength means a lot.
I mean, it can make removal in a mirror be irrelevant.
Mm-hmm. Right, it fades
Medusa sometimes.
Or it makes other characters fade Medusa.
Other characters,
yep.
yeah.
2 Lumieres out means Brawl's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
It can be pretty nasty. I gave this one a 4.
And I gave it a 4 as well.
Yep, just a touch under Frenemy, Flynn Rider, at a 4 instead of a 4.5. Speaking of good cards, there's one. This is a 2/6/2. It's Mulan, Elite Archer. She's a 6 Inkable as well to go with all of that. She shifts for 5. She has the ability of Straight Shooter. When you play this character, if you use Shift, she gets 3 additional strength. She becomes a 5/6. And then the ability of Triple Shot. During your turn, whenever this character deals damage to another character, deal that same amount of damage to up to 2 other chosen characters. Yeah, I think a lot of people just jammed her in expecting her to be completely busted, and I do think that some tooling is required here.
Hyper Hippo played her against me today with
Vitalosphere
and just said, "Sorry, Sam."
Yeah.
And wiped my board.
Yes, no, this card is nasty, but you definitely have to have... It's not just throw it in the deck and it does the cool thing. It's not that plug and play. So I totally agree with chat here. It needs that push to be baked into your deck just a little bit. That being said, this card causes insane blowouts that are very, very scary. It feels like Big Tink did back in set 1. It's very, very oppressive card. I think it's going to be really, really good. For now, I gave it a 5. I could definitely see a 4.5 being legit because of the needing to bake it into the build.
Yeah, I gave it a 5.
That's well said. Next is Mulan, Enemy of Entanglement. This is a 1/3/1 for 2 Inkable with the ability of Time to Shine. Whenever you play an action, this character gets +2 strength this turn. One of the shifts you can use here. I don't particularly like this shift Mulan that much. I think that she has the ability to like kind of scale up and trade up potentially, but those like stat fights, as we keep alluding to, don't matter so much in Core Constructed with this game. So I'm kind of low on it myself. I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I gave it a 2 just because it's a shift target.
It's a 1, yeah, it's a 1/3.
I don't think it's a 1 only because it's a good, like, it could be used as a shift.
Yeah, it could be a good limited card if you're playing the right actions. Kill that thing and then challenge this other thing and then take that out too. It's pretty nasty. This Mulan, however. Mulan Injured Soldier. This is a 2/3/1 for 1 inkable with the ability of Battle Wound. This character enters play with 2 damage. I think this card is super duper strong, especially in the Mufasa decks where you can pair it with Amber. Even if you're not Mufasaing, if you're just playing it with Amber, because of Julieta and Rapunzel, being able to heal this and then draw yourself replacement cards. Really, really strong. It comes down cheap. It's strong. It hits hard for the cost. It's just above rate, kind of like Mother Gothel was. Really, really good.
I agree with that.
Yeah, yep. It's just
As
by
a
itself
one-drop,
good.
takes care of almost any other. I guess it doesn't take care of like the 1/3s, but
right. But with
why do you
Lumiere,
need to? Or with Lumiere
on 2 is good. Like that's just good stuff. I've been practicing in with the Mufasa deck and seeing it yield results. Really good. I like this card quite a bit. It does need other things to be great, but on its own, it's very good. And I think that's the hallmark of a strong card. So I gave it a 4.
Give it a 4.
Excellent. Next up is Namari, Heir of Fang. This is a 2/3/1 for 3 uninkable with the ability of 2-weapon fighting. During your turn, whenever this character deals damage to another character in a challenge, you may deal the same amount of damage to another chosen character. I think this card, right, which this is the Mulan stats for 1 on an inkable with Mulan. This is a 3 uninkable with Namari.
Yeah, but she surprised us in that quest.
Yeah, in the co-op version of
with support.
Yeah, the Deep Trouble. This thing was nasty with medallion weights and support. It was like just spewing, but it's so much set up, and in core constructed, those things matter so much less than just straight dealing with the board, which is what Deep Trouble sets up for. So it is definitely a lot different of a world there. I gave it a 3 just because I could see a world where somebody might want it on curve, but it seems unlikely.
Give it a 3.
You're going to give it a 3?
Mm-hmm. Just because you do need a lot of other cards to make it good.
Understood. Getting a 2 from chat makes sense. I totally see where you're coming from there as well. Nessus River Guardian. This is a 7/5/2 for 6 inkable. Again, stats don't mean a whole heck of a lot. This is a limited card there just because it does stuff, right? Like it's just like, oh, you might not be able to answer it. So I gave it a 2.
Give it a 2.
It's not very good. Next up is Noi, Acrobatic Baby. This is a 4/4/1 for 4 inkable. It has the ability of Fancy Footwork. Whenever you play an action, this character takes no damage from challenges this turn. I could see a world where you might be able to set up something with this. It just doesn't quest enough in the meantime. It doesn't do enough on the whole. It could, like, there might be a point where it does something. I just feel like it's all pretty thin. It's surprising to see this being a super rare. Though it could take down something, like you could ready it and then take something else out in Ruby. But just feels like you're like asking a lot when Ruby's so good at just taking things out just without having to jump through this level of hoops.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave Noi a 3 on the off chance maybe somebody could put something to use with her.
I gave her a 2.
Yeah, 2's probably right.
I'd just rather play so many other things.
Ends at a 2.5. I think that seems reasonable. I could see it being a 2 as well. Pegasus, Flying Steed. This is a 3/1/1 for 2 inkable with evasive. I gotta bring my score up on this one. I gave it a 2 initially as well. I'm seeing people play it in red purple to deal with the evasive threats. I'm playing it Mufasa. Again, pairs great with Perdita to keep bringing back this evasive threat, to keep smacking things out of the sky that I need to deal with. They just have to take things out, and sometimes this is your best one to do it. I feel like it's probably a little bit better than I gave it the 2 as well. Like Chad is. I'm going to bump mine to a 3 just because I do think that it's already seeing play. I think it's probably going to continue to see play. I don't love it, and I still don't like the fact I'm playing it, but I think that it's rough. It's necessary.
I also gave it a 3.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, you need to be able to take care of evasives.
Yep.
Takes care of Mini.
Right.
Takes care of Diablo.
Right, it does the thing. Evasives are the thing right now. It does the thing. It's not sexy, it's not fun, but it does the thing. Next up is Raya, Fierce Protector. This is a 3/3/1 for 3 inkable with the ability of Don't Cross Me. Whenever this character challenges another character, gain 1 lore for each other damaged character that you have. Like, it's just, if this, then that, then this, then that. Like, I don't even want to read this card. Like, this card exhausts me to look at. There's too many words, and none of them mean anything. It's so super situational. I give it a 2.
I gave it a 1.
This is too situational. Next up is Raya, Guardian of the Dragon Gem. This is a 3/3/2 for 4 inkable. Too wordy, and the words don't mean anything. Like, everything's made up and the points don't matter. Like, it's just not good. This one has We Have Come Together. When you play this character, ready chosen character of yours at a location. They can't quest the rest of the turn. So it's like really bad LaFoe with like mediocre to poor stats. Like, poor Raya has gotten the short end of the stick on like every card in here. I gave her a 2.
I gave her a 1.
So yeah, chat gives her a 1, coming in at like a 1.5. If we factor in chat, probably just the hard 1 there.
Now this card, what did I give this?
This is probably correct score that you gave this one, I think. So this is Sisu, Daring Visitor. So Sisu is a 1/1/1 for 3 uninkable, and she has evasive, and she also has the ability Bring on the Heat. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 1 strength or less. Really quickly, I'm going to do an exercise for everybody out there. Cursed Merfolk, Flynn, Ryder, Hiram, Flaversham, Rapunzel, Gifted with Healing. Who else? Any other ones that are jumping to your mind? Like, these all... Sisu, Daring Visitor.
Yeah, herself.
Like
Minnie Mouse.
Minnie Mouse, Stylish Surfer. Like, there's so many relevant cards that have 1 strength, and Sisu comes down and makes... Perdita. She makes mincemeat of all of those cards. It is very un-okay. The fact that red, purple, you can pick it up and put it back down. The fact she comes down on 3 and just sits there and... Yeah, she just kills herself. She sits there, and if she kills something, then she sits there and quests a whole bunch. Like, when we were playing, you were gaining, like, 3-4 lore with each of these Sisus. Like,
she has impressed me. Like, she is way better than I thought she would be. And I've played her several times without 1 drop to kill. Or a 1 strength to kill.
Or just throw it evasive sometimes is enough. She takes out Little Pegasus.
Like, if I just need to start questing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Little Pegasus.
Little Diablo. Like, there's just so much this card handles. Lilo, Purple Maleficent. Like, oof. Why is this card so good? Like, this card is crazy.
And it's an uncommon.
And let us not forget, it can tangle with a second 1 willpower card and take it out. So it can take out 2 units for 1. Wow. What an upgrade Ruby got with this card. I think it's very, very good. I gave Sisu a 4.
I gave her 4, but I think she deserves higher.
I think 4 is pretty correct.
It's probably
It's
correct.
a strong staple.
She's not a
bomb.
bomb.
Yeah. Next up is
This card is better than
another
I thought it was gonna
Sisu, Emboldened Warrior. Yeah, Sisu getting some upgrades here. This is a 1/4/2 for 3 inkable. With the ability of Surge of Power, this character gets 1 strength for each card in the opponent's hand.
This card was absolutely crazy with the frenemy.
It also works in multiplayer for each, because it is each opponent, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, this
with
card...
Flynn Rider, I just couldn't...
Right. Flynn Rider on
anything.
2, Sisu on 3 is a really good line. She's inkable, so she's not relevant. You put her away. She's a great little shift target. I think that this Sisu is quite strong. I think that she's just really impressed me. I gave her a 3.
I gave her a 4.
Puts her at the 3.5. Chat agrees, 3.5. I think that's a pretty fair place for her. She's above... She's not quite strong, but definitely be above unexciting role player, so probably exciting. Next is Sisu, Empowered Siblings. This is the big one. This is the Shifty Legendary. This is an 5/4/3 for 8 uninkable. This is a shift 6, with the ability of I got this. When you play this character, banish all opposing characters with 2 strength or less. I think this card is pretty awesome. I think this card helps with the whole 2-drop Ursula problem or Bare Necessities problem that Ruby has, where it's just like, cool, my Be Prepared is gone. You can play Scar. You can play this. Like, you have so many angles of attack now.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more conditional, but the fact that they're untouchable in the hand is so important for Ruby. I think that this is a pretty important upgrade that a lot of the Ruby decks got. I don't think every Ruby deck can play this, but I think that the Ruby decks that don't mind paying the 8 without shifting have no problem slinging this card down and dealing with a wide board, especially in the Sapphire Ruby versions, where you can get this down ahead of schedule and wipe an aggressive board. It is not okay. Like, it is really powerful. And then having a 5/4/3 sitting there waiting to quest, or to Lucky Dime then quest. This card's no joke. The fact that it quests for so much is crazy good. I think this card's quite awesome. I don't think you can play a ton of them, but I think when you do play them, most of the time they feel real good. I gave this one a 4.
I think I'd go up to a 5 on it.
Going up to a 5 on it.
Yeah. Just because, like, I would be okay with playing all the Sisus and shifting in some kind of deck.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they're all good.
Okay, so we got that Sisu up to a 4.5 here from IllumiNation. Chat gives it a 5. Can't argue with that. Card does a ton. Next we have Tong, 3/6 for 4 uninkable with just Reckless. Card is not good. I gave it a 1.
I gave it a 1.
Chat gives it a 1. Next up is Tuk Tuk Lively Partner. Yep, Partner. It is a 2/3/1 with Evasive, and it is a 3 inkable. It also has On a Roll as its ability. When you play this character, you may move him and one of your other characters to the same location for free. That other character gets +2 strength this turn. I like that it comes in, it can pump, and it can move things if that's relevant. If it's not relevant, I think the fact it can just come in and pump and is a 2/3 evasive is pretty good. Like, I think this little guy, in addition to being very cute art, is gonna be like one of these like hidden role players in the set. I think this is gonna come alive at a point, and he's gonna be like a meta call where people are just like, oh, Tuk Tuk's crazy right now. I think that Tuk Tuk is pretty darn strong, and I think he's gonna impress a lot of people. I gave him a 3.
And I gave him a 3 as well.
Nice. Yeah, Queen's Castle. Exactly. Yeah, like this is in the color that has Jim Hawkins, so it's like, I'm gonna move me and Jim over if you need to. Like, you're more apt to play locations in Ruby than a lot of other colors. So yeah, totally agree with your assessment. Chat puts it at a 4. I don't think that's unreasonable either. Next is A Pirate's Life. This is a Sing Together 6. So it is a 6-cost inkable song. Each opponent loses 2 lore. You then gain 2 lore. So we've seen this when Big Aladdin hits. I like that this can kind of come out of nowhere. I don't like that it's an expensive song. So it's like a back and forth for me. I could definitely see this getting played just because it is inkable. But it's a toughie to call how much of it. Just being able to do that 2 lore swing, so 4 total, 4 between the two, swinging completely is not insignificant. Like, a lot of decks are testing out Big Aladdin again because of Vitalosphere. That Big Aladdin obviously does a little bit more, but is also conditional. Pirate's Life, similar thing, just more susceptible to hand-based removal, so there is a cost to a Pirate's Life. But I could see a world where people are playing 2 of these in their decks. I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3.
Could be a card, I'm not sure. Speaking of songs, this is a 4-cost uninkable song, Be King Undisputed. Each opponent chooses and banishes one of their characters. So this is another card, much like you said earlier with the Incaster. People like this card a lot, or they dislike this card a lot. I think that I fall in the middle with Be King Undisputed. I think its biggest issue is that this is the card used against Diablo. I mean, if you sing this with a rabbit, like, man, you come out so far ahead. Like, there are scenarios where you use this card, and it is crazy good. Yeah, Maui, Hiram, Merlin Rabbit, Merlin Goat. There's so many singers that you don't mind just being like, okay, like,
Middle-sized grandma is 4 too, right?
Yep, Grandma Tala sings it. Like, it's legit. It's legit. Yep, exactly. It's in a color that can set it up very easily to have just one card out. It's really good. I think the only thing working against it is just it's another uninkable for Ruby, and that's not a huge problem. You can build your deck carefully. How far I'll go? I think that's totally legit. I think if you need to work, and I think you need to play to the board more right now than you need to ramp, so I totally can understand that choice. Absolutely. I don't see anything wrong with that. I gave this one a 3.
I gave it a 4 because I like it a lot.
Comes down to a 3.5 from IllumiNation. I think it's a very, very solid card, and I think we'll be seeing it. It's another card you're going to have to worry about, right, out of Ruby, where it's like, oh, crap. That's you. It's Lady Tremaine 2 turns sooner. Speaking of things you got to worry about out of Ruby, Brawl. This is a 3-cost action, specifically not a song, and it banishes a chosen character with 2 strength or less. This card is crazy good.
It's very good.
This gets rid of all the awkwardness Ruby had on like turn dealing with like 2s and like between I guess 1s and 3s out of other decks that were really oppressive. Brawl just mops them all up. Like, whew. Just Ruby absolutely got some gifts in this set. Like I think that these cards are extraordinarily powerful. The fact that this one is inkable is wild to me because that never happens for Ruby. Like there's a condition to it. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy to see this card. Like, I read it 4 times the first time I saw it, so I just could not believe it was a real card. It's a common card. Man, this card is good. I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 4.
Awesome card. Next up is Imperial Proclamation. This is a 1-cost inkable item with the ability of Call to the Front. Whenever one of your characters challenges another character, you can pay 1 ink less for the next character you play this turn. Yeah, I wanted this card to be good. I watched a lot of people testing it in various Mufasa builds, and it's just doing nothing. Like, it's just doing nothing. It rewards you when the board is close to at parity, and that's not necessarily when you need the big sweeping cards to get the cost reductions. So I don't think that this card does quite enough to be good. I think that it just kind of whiffs, unfortunately. I gave it a 2 like chat.
Yep, I gave it a 2.
Across the board. Next is Medallion Weights. This is a 2-cost inkable item with the ability of Discipline and Strength. You have to pay 2 ink, exert this, and then give a chosen character +2 this turn for Strength. And whenever they challenge another character, you may draw a card. I think this card is a little slow to set up, but it can be very powerful. Yeah, this card's great with Super Goofy. I was using it to really good effect with that uninkable Namari in the Ursula co-op game, where I was just drawing cards. You can pump a teammate's character, which is really cool, and then when they challenge, you draw the card, which is neat. Like, I really like the flexibility of this card. It is a touch on the slow side, so I don't think by any stretch it's going to be a strong staple, but I think it certainly can be a playable in the right deck. I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3 as well.
Excellent. Chat gave it a 3.5. I think that's totally legit as well. Next is the Plank. This is a 3-cost uninkable item with the ability of Walk, which is very fitting. You have to pay 2 more ink and then banish this item, so a total of 5. You get to choose 1. Banish a chosen hero character, or ready a chosen villain character, but then they cannot quest for the rest of the turn. This card has like so many little specifics to it. Like, I can't figure out why it has so many specific callouts on an uninkable card, no less.
It's so expensive, and it's so, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's so specific.
Yeah.
Like a hero character, a villain character.
Not that those aren't, I mean, those are huge character types, but just, when we just looking at the cards, Be King Undisputed, Brawl, like, looking at these cards, and then looking at this card looks so much worse than those cards does. Like, does, whatever the correct way to say that is. It looks so much worse than those cards. I can't give this beyond a 1. It's not even inkable. Like, I'm just giving it a 1 here.
I give it a 1.
Next up is Vitalisphere. This is a really cool little item. It is a 1-cost inkable item with the ability of Extract of Ruby. You may pay 1 ink, banish this item, chosen character gains Rush and +2 Strength this turn. Really exciting. A big Aladdin scary again. Because of Vitalisphere, Mulan is scarier than she should be with no shift target because of Vitalisphere. This card, worst case, is ink or 2 cards if you're playing it with Hiram Flaversham.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah, I think this card's really strong. I gave it a 3.
And I gave it a 4.
Gives it a 3.5, which chat also gives the 3.5. Agreed across the board. Next up is our first location of Ruby. It's the Snuggly Duckling Disreputable Pub. It is a 2-cost inkable location with a 2 movement cost and 9 willpower. It has no passive lore, and it does have 1 ability, which is Routine Ruckus. Whenever a character with 3 strength or more challenges another character while here, gain 1 lore. If the challenging character has 6 strength or more, gain 3 lore instead. Let's compare this to Flynn Rider Frenemy. Flynn Rider is a 2/2 for 2 that you just play and it can gain you lore. Easy. Snuggly Duckling costs the same amount as Flynn Rider. You then have to pay an additional 2 to move something there to gain 1/3 of the amount of passive lore that Flynn Rider gains, unless that happens to be a very big character, which is like the soonest you're going to be putting it down is turn 4, and then you got to move it on turn 5 before it challenges to gain 3. Like, it's just, yeah, I hope it makes sense that you're just like, it's forcing you to jump through so many more hoops, meaning that it's a worse card, right? Like, this card, you really can't do anything with it. I don't know as though, like, somebody's going to try to tuck it into, like, that weight set style deck. It feels like they're going to tie up a lot of their ink with drawing cards off the weight set. So, I don't know. I could see it maybe seeing some kind of play in the future. I'm going to drop my score on this one because I had a 3. I'm going to give it the 2, I think, because I just don't see any way to defend it properly because it's just so many hoops.
And I had it at 2.
Yeah, 2 seems to be the order.
I'm pretty down on these locations this set.
Yeah. This is a cool location. This isn't a good location. This is a cool location, in my opinion. This is Training Grounds, Impossible Pillar. 1 cost inkable location. It is a 1 movement cost, 5 willpower, no passive lore. It has the ability Strength of Mind. You may pay 1 ink and give chosen character here plus 1 strength this turn. This one has kind of no limitation to it. So right now, it's irrelevant, right? Like, there's no relevancy to it. You want to give this a 0 for stats, but 5 for the drawing. It is a cool artwork, and I think there might be something later on, like, where you can do something equal to strength. But again, look at the 3-drop Sisu. That just gets this ability for cards in the opponent's hand. Play the card, get the benefit. This is pump a bunch of resources into it. So the only way this pays off is, like, you gain X lore maybe if you, or like gain lore equal to the strength of a character.
A card that doesn't exist.
A card that does not exist. There's like some way because anything in a game that can be unconditional or close to unconditional like this can usually be broken in some way. This has potential in the future to be something. As of right now, no. In Limited, I could definitely see using this to trade up with your very cheap characters into more expensive characters. So I would say that this is a limited playable card. I gave it a 2 because of that.
I gave it a 2.
Okay. It's not the worst.
That wasn't me saying it should probably be a 1.
Do you want me to change it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody.
So I give it a 1.
1.5 for the collective podcast and a effective 0 for a desired 0 for chat. Sapphire's up next. Appreciate everybody hanging with us once again. IllumiNation podcast. Give me a quick moment to plug. We are on YouTube podcasts, Apple podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, RSS, anywhere you ingest these things. Like, what do you listen to podcasts on? We're there. Even the internet. We're there right now. Every Sunday night. Superliminal Entertainment here with another live stream every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Sam and I, the IllumiNation podcast, tend to do a lot of Lorcana. We will occasionally do some Magic or some other fun thing. Jared tends to do a lot of Star Wars, tends to do a lot of other retro gaming stuff. So, pretty much become a variety stream, I'd say, at this point. But we'll be here every Sunday at 8. If you haven't followed us, give us a follow, maybe. It'd be pretty cool if you did. Definitely check out the IllumiNation podcast if you're watching this, because clearly you like Lorcana. So, we also, too, like Lorcana. Let's move on into Sapphire, shall we? First up is Anna, Braving the Storm. Anna is a 1/4/1 for 2 inkable. She has the ability of I Was Born Ready. If you have another hero character in play, she gets +1 lore when questing. Just so you know, like, the first 3 sets had like 160-something heroes. Just want to throw that out there. This set, obviously, adding on more heroes still. So there's probably like over 200 heroes in this game so far. It is one of the most common character types. So it's not very hard for Anna to become a 1-4-2 for 2, which is a really good stat line that early in the game. So if there's some kind of weird, like, blue steel hero deck, I could see her becoming a thing, but for now, there's probably not a home for her yet. I gave her a 3 because there's potential.
Yeah, I gave her a 3.
Fair enough. Next up is another Anna. This is Anna Truehearted, who looks like she should shift, but she doesn't. She's a 2-4-2 for 4 inkable. She's Dreamborn, so she does not shift. She has the ability of Let Me Help You. Whenever this character quests, your other hero characters get +1 lore when they quest this turn. I think, again, we could see the right home for this card. I gave it a 3 for similar reasons.
I gave it a 3.
Excellent. Next is Aerial Treasure Collector. This is a 3-4-3 for 6 uninkable with Ward. And the ability is the girl who has everything. While you have more items in play than each opponent, this character gets +2 lore. She can quest for 5. She gets the bell number of questing for 5. So it's really not hard for the blue decks to leverage an ability to do this and use a lucky dime to just gain 5 out of nowhere. The ward means she's a lot harder to deal with. The stats are she can take a little bit of a hit. Not bad. She's protected from Medusa and all the red things because of her ward. So she has some implications for sure. I could definitely see some decks testing out Aerial Treasure Collector. I gave her a 3.
I gave her a 4.
So 3.5 from the collective here. Moving on to Aurora Lore Guardian. She is a 3-3 for 4. 3-3-2 for 4 inkable. She has Shift 2. And she has 2 abilities. One is Preserver. Opponents can't choose your items for abilities or effects. So your items effectively gain ward. And then she has the second ability of Royal Inventory. You can exert one of your items to look at the top card of your deck and put it either on top or on bottom of your deck. So we call this scrying in Magic the Gathering. So you look at one card and go, do I want it on top still or do I want it on the bottom? And you can do that every time you exert an item. Really cool with Flaversham because you can do this ahead of that. Mm-hmm. So kind of fitting a similar role to Grammatala a little bit. She doesn't exactly replace herself in the same way, but she does give you the ability to just like let your popsicle scry before you draw cards, which could be actually something reasonable. I gave her a 3.
And I gave her a 3 as well.
Excellent. Next up is Aurora Tranquil Princess. She is a 1-3-1 for 2 inkable with ward, and she's kind of the shift line screw up.
Yeah, not very good shift line either.
No.
A better shift character if you're going to use her.
Yeah, I don't think this is great. I do, however, think the art is fantastic. So, very cool art. I like it a lot. As for the card itself, unfortunately, I give it a 2.
And she's a 2.
Yep. She can quest early, and she has ward, so she's protected, but that's for limited, not for core constructed. Next up is Dang Hu. This is a 3-5-2 for 5 inkable with the ability of You Better Talk Fast. Your other villain characters gain support. Again, support hasn't really mattered in core constructed yet. I like the idea of, like, the stat line is okay. Like, she can take a hit from Madame M. Fox and live to tell the tale. She is unfortunately hittable by Madame Medusa. So it's like she's in that world where you have to talk about both of those cards. So she's coming down in a complicated part of the curve where it's like, oh, this is a toughie. If she was like 4-5-2 for 5, I think stats alone would be enough to be like, yeah, there might be a deck that wants Dang Hu.
I don't like that it gives other villains support, and she does not have support.
Right. Like, it's really, again, with the other makes it a little tricky. I don't know. It's a tough one. I gave her a 3 because I could see a world where the stats are good enough.
I gave her a 2.
Makes total sense to me because it's a 2.5 from the podcast. Next is Fa Li. This is a 1-3-1 for 1 inkable. That's it. And this is the blue version. Interestingly, though, Sapphire gets this at common instead of uncommon, which I believe the rest of the colors all got the uncommon slot taken up by the stat line. On the whole, obviously not really a playable. I gave it a 2.
Just a 2.
Next up is Flounder Collector's Companion. 2-2-2 for 3 inkable with support and an ability, I'm Not a Guppy. When you have a character named Ariel in play, you pay 1 less. Again, like Max in Amber, this suffers from not having a 1-drop Ariel. So going Ariel on 1, Flounder on 2 with the support is pretty interesting because then if you have, like, for example, if Ariel was the 1-3-1 in Amber and then you played Flounder on 2, you could then the next turn quest with Flounder, pump up Ariel and let her hit something, which is really an interesting play line where Flounder unfortunately doesn't have that.
I'm sure we'll get it eventually.
It could maybe eventually be something, but for today's review, not so much. I gave it a 2.
Yep.
Next is Hades. Meticulous Plotter, 361 for 4. Inkable. It's got a lot going on in its flavor text for the next chapter of the game, perhaps. But in terms of the game itself, I gave it a 2 under the possibility it could maybe do something in limited, but that seems generous even.
I gave it a 1.
Yeah, 1.5 I agree with. Hans, Noble Scoundrel, 322 for 3. Inkable. Royal Schemes is his ability, and when you play this character, if a princess or a queen character is in play, you get a lore. 1 lore on like a medium statted character isn't the most impressive thing in the world. Like, it's not enough lore that I'm like, oh, out of nowhere you can just win the game. It's true, and it can be like crappy Merlin Goat potentially, but it's not comes in, leaves. Like, it doesn't quite do as much as that. We saw this with Donald as well, where it's like, it's kind of crappy Goat, but it's not kind of crappy Goat. I don't know about Hans. It's a tough one. I'm gonna bump him to a 3, I think, just because I think you need to stay at the 2. And we probably need to give that card a 2.5 just because there's a chance it could break in, but I doubt it.
Okay. I don't agree, but...
I do not. Caring Mother. This is a 3/3/1 for 4 Inkable, and she has the ability of Enduring Love. When this character is banished, you may put this card into your inkwell face down and exert it. So we always joke about the like mid-sized Grand Matala being the 4-drop Grand Matala. This one literally is mid-sized Grand Matala. I don't think anybody really wants this. I think this is a little too late in the curve for this ability. I gave it a 2.
I think I gave it a 3.
You did?
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I could see maybe a deck one and be like, no, we just really need the ramp, kind of irrespective.
Especially like if they're replacing like the 4 song that puts 1 in your inkwell.
How far I'll go?
Yeah, so could help.
I would like this card if it was a 4 Inkable 1, 2, 3. Because then it forces the opponent to be like, I can't just let this thing sit here and quest. I need to take this out. Maybe a 2/2/2 on 4 with that. Something like that. It just feels like the stats don't line up to where it's like, okay, cool. You didn't play this till turn 4. It can quest. I don't care.
Yeah.
Where Grandma coming down on 2, it's like, all right, it's been like 4 turns. That thing's been going sideways. I actually need to take this stupid thing out. I don't know. Johnny Silver. This is an 8/8/3 for 8 Inkable. So it's the Maui we saw in Chapter 1 in Steel. I gave this a, I believe 2. A 2. Yes.
2/2/2.
Yeah, it's just, we didn't see Maui played. He did a very minimal amount in the first chapter in the ramp decks that people were testing, but it didn't quite get there, so I don't think this one will either. Next is Olaf Carrot Enthusiast. It's a 1/4/2 for 3 Inkable. It is a discard and item shift cost, if you want to get him down. And he has the ability of carrots all around. Whenever he quests, each of your other characters gets strength equal to this character's strength this turn, so you get stronger if you eat your vegetables. I think it's like Super Shift, basically. And I think even with Super Shift,
Super Support.
Super Support, would I say Shift?
Yeah.
Super Support, I think even with Super Support, it's still not that good.
It's only supporting 1. I mean, like, you could pump it.
It's a lot of hoops to jump through for what reason?
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you here. I give our Carrot Enthusiast a 2.
Yeah.
I love carrots. Not so much that Olaf. Next we have Olaf Trusting Companion, who is a 1/2/1 for 1 Inkable with support. So it's the blue version of Hey Hey Boat Snack from Chapter 1. Hey Hey saw very minimal play in first chapter because what you do is you would use the support on your Simba to take out the opposing Simba that was bodyguarded. We've kind of moved very far since then. Like, the game's evolved quite a lot since that line of play pattern mattered. So unfortunately for Trusting Companion, he's a little too little, a little too late. I gave him a 2.
Yep, I gave him a 2 as well.
Next we have Pascal, Inquisitive Pet, 3/3/1 for 3 Inkable with the ability of Colorful Tactics. When you play this character, look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order. So this is like it's like reflection from first chapter, just on a 3/3/1 for 3. I don't think a 3/3/1 for 3 is a very good stat line. I think rearranging the cards is a minimal effect. I gave him a 2.
Yep, same.
Next up, we have a Prince Philip. It is Prince Philip, Gallant Defender, 1/3/2 for 3, inkable. He is a support and has an ability of Best Defense. When one of your characters is chosen for support, they gain resist +1 this turn. So if they're going to challenge, they have a little bit of extra buff with resist. This actually does quest for a semi-reasonable amount, like we were talking about with Iduna. Like, I wish she had quested for more. He actually does. Like, he quests for a decent amount. He's got a stat line that's reasonable. I don't love it. He also is very susceptible to just being taken out because he can't buff himself. So it's like, okay, I'll just take out that idiot then. Mm-hmm. So it's like not great, even though he can do some things. I gave him a 2.5 just in case it ends up mattering. Or sorry, a 3.
I gave him the 2,
right,
which equals the 2.5.
Correct, thank you. Next we have Rapunzel, Appreciative Artist. This is a 3/5/3 for 5 inkable with the ability of Perceptive Partner. While you have a character named Pascal in play, this character gains Ward. Is Pascal in the art? Is he hiding?
I don't see him.
I don't see him either. So that probably means he's hiding well. I don't know as though this is really going to matter. Again, it's like stat line. She's Medusa-able unless you have a Pascal, and then like you have to keep the Pascal out. I don't think Blurple necessarily is going to go for this, but it's possible, and like there's a world where it's possible.
That's a hidden Mickey.
Oh yeah, I see a hidden Mickey. Yep. I gave this Rapunzel a 2.
I gave her a 3.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like same as the last card. I think that we need to kind of like, it's possible but unlikely, I think is a good way to describe it. Next up we have Scuttle, who is a 1/3/1 for 2 inkable with the ability of Let Me See. When you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is the item version of Ariel, Spectacular Singer. No condition to the item though. It can cost as much as you want. It just has to be an item. Mm-hmm. I think that this card, we were talking about like kind of jumping through hoops. This card really doesn't require you to jump through many hoops other than to have enough items in your deck you're confident that you can find a 1 and 4. So most of the blue decks tend to play that level of item, like that critical mass of items in that number. So this doesn't seem like a heavy lift at all for them to be playing something like Scuttle. I think this card is quite good. The 1/3 stat line that quests is pretty good. It can get buffed up really easily, kind of just on like as part of another effect, and he can hit things, he can quest, he can do a lot of little things. I kind of like him in those decks. I think he's a 4. I think he's a pretty strong staple in these blue decks.
I as well gave it a 4.
You can see Teeth coming back. Definitely. This card loves to sing Teeth and Ambitions. Here, have an item. Have a Popsicle, have a Teeth and Ambitions. And then you could even heal the Scuttle if you felt so inclined. Well, you won't, because you're going to draw more cards with Flaversham. But it's pretty darn good, old Scuttle. Next up, we have Sisu, Wise Friend, 6/6/2 for 6 inkable. That's it. No effects. It's just
Blue
stats.
Sisus aren't very good.
Yeah, it's just, unfortunately. I gave this one a 2.
And I think I gave it a 2 as well.
You did, yes. I'd play this in Limited. You're going to crash into it, the thing's going to go down. Or it's going to smack something. That's a good hallmark for Limited. Next, we have the Queen. Diviner. 3/3/1 for 3 inkable with the ability of Consult the Spellbook. You can exert her to look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it in your hand, same as Scuttle. If that item costs 3 or less, you may play it, for free, and it enters play exerted. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So she can put your Fishbone Quills into play, she can put your Popsicles into play, she can put your Fortispheres into play. Vitalispheres go into play. She can just dump most of the items you're playing directly into play. She does have to survive a turn, but on the 3rd turn, especially if you're on the play, that seems like it's pretty doable. And you don't want to spend like a ton of time trying to mop this thing up, unless like it's just once you can get rid of it for free, or like a Madame Medusa or something, you will. But this comes down early enough that it can actually do something.
I like that too. Like if you find your lucky dime, it goes into your hand. It's not just going under the bottom.
You don't whiff, yeah. I think that this card could see a home in a lot of decks that really are looking like I need to hunt down a specific item. I don't know how what the number of scuttles and queens and all shake out to. Obviously, the more of them you have, the less items you can fit, and then there's got to be a potency of each of those numbers that you need. I gave this queen a 3.
Give her a 4.
Excellent. So I think that 3.5 sounds right to me. Where it's she's not going to be phenomenal, but I do think she's not going to be above unexciting role player in my opinion. This is one of my least favorite arts in the set. Creepy looking ass stove. This is Transform Chef Castle Stove. 3/3/2 for 4 inkable, and it has the ability a culinary masterpiece. When you play this character, remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. So essentially, it's stats with a little minor healing ability. That still again hasn't really been super relevant. I gave it a 2.
Yep, 2.
Play it limited probably. Next up is Triton, Champion of Atlantica. This is the other legendary Sapphire card. This is a 7/9/3 for 9. Those are all numbers. It has Shift 6. 6, 9, 7, 3, 1 are all numbers on this card. God, I hate it. It has the ability of Imposing Presence. Opposing characters get -1 strength for each location that you have in play. So this card is trying to do something that Blue hasn't had a lot of support, not to use a game term, but it hasn't had a lot of other cards to help it, which is the blue location style payoffs. Not so much just the item card draw engine, but this is actually the location payoff style deck. This is a tough card to evaluate because today this card is not very good. But 2 sets from now, this card could be very good. I don't think it's ever going to be above a 4. But I think that today it is not anywhere near a 4. I do like the art a lot, and I like that the dolphin fin is breaking the frame. And his little trident tip is as well. I think other than that, today, as it sits, this card is likely not playable. I think some people will test it out and find it's probably not playable. I put it at a 3 just because it has the hallmarks of potentially being a playable. Yeah, exactly.
I think it is a 1. But I put it at a 2 because it's probably not really a 1.
Right.
But I do not like it at all.
So it gets a 2.5 from us. Above limited card to between.
I don't know if I would play it in limited, but it's just because of right now.
Right. Definitely. Follow that up with Triton, Discerning King. 3/3/1 for 3. Uninkable. And it has the ability of Consign to the Depths. You can exert him, banish one of your items to gain 3 lore. Again, kind of like Frenemy, this doesn't ask a ton of you to gain a lot of lore. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like this a good amount. Definitely more than the previous one. I think it's not necessarily going to find a home. Because there's just so many cards around items that you kind of need, again, to have that critical mass of items to make it work. So I don't know how many of these you get away with playing, and that's my concern, is it just may not get played just because of the number of cards that you can and can't play because of how many items you have to play in your deck. I gave the Discerning King a 3.
I give it a 4. I really like it. I think if you can ready it and then do it twice, it's really powerful.
Absolutely. Shield of Virtue and this thing get along very, very well. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think the 3.5 is a good description of where it belongs. So now we have Triton Young Prince. Look at that red hair. It's a 3/4/1 for 4 inkable with the ability of Superior Swimmer. During your turn, this character gains evasive, so they can challenge evasive units. And then it also has the ability Keeper of Atlantica. When one of your locations is banished, you may put that card into your inkwell face down and exert it. So it can allow you to ramp when they take out your locations. But we still haven't seen a location that's cheap and easy. We haven't seen a 1/2 or a 1/3/2 or something in blue. Mm-hmm. If that was the case, then I'd say maybe this Triton's pretty good. Or even a 2 for a 2/4/2 or something. Some kind of location where this Triton pays off. Okay, cool. They're allocating resources to bash my locations, which allow me to set up to take out their units, and also they're ramping me at the same time. That feels like it could be a thing, but it hasn't happened. So, unfortunately for the young prince, I don't think he's quite there yet. Though again, I can see a world where locations become a thing, so I am a forgiving soul, and I gave him a 3.
I gave him a 2.
Yep, comes in at the 2.5, which I think again is fair. Next we have Tuk Tuk Curious Partner. This is a 2-3-1 for 2, so it's all stats, so we don't give that one too much of a good rating. He is cute though. I gave him a 2.
I gave him a 2.
Next is Dig a Little Deeper. Our first song, it's the Sing Together for blue. It's a Sing Together 8. And it is uninkable. It has the ability of look at the top 7 cards of your deck, put 2 into your hand, then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Fades Diablo, which is nice. Puts 2 things into your hand, potentially, by just using a Tamatoa, which is kind of cool. I do think that this could see play in like the volume of 1, maybe 2. Sorry, Tamatoa. It doesn't trigger Diablo.
Oh, okay.
It does not trigger
That's what
Diablo.
I was I'm trying to think of what you meant by that. And I thought maybe you just said
plays around Diablo.
Okay.
Same as like Develop Your Brain.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Yep. I gave this a 3.
I gave it what did I give it? A 2? Why?
Because you probably didn't believe that it's a playable. 2.5 is about right, probably, honestly. Next is Glean. This is a 1-cost inkable action. It allows you to banish a chosen item. That player gains 2 lore. So if you banish their item, you give them 2 lore. If you banish your item, you gain 2 lore. Kind of cool. It can win you a game out of nowhere. Like you're just like kind of just holding on to 2 Glean, and you can just be like, okay, cool, I'm at 16. Boop, boop, I win.
Super cheap.
Super cheap. Very little cost other than it's an entire card for an effect that's like maybe not the best, but blowing up an item early is valuable.
Have we even had... Oh, we haven't had a 1-cost item destruction.
No. Nope, Break at 2, I believe, is the next cheapest. So, Glean, I gave a 3.
Yep, I gave it a 3 as well.
Yeah, I think it's playable for sure. Seldom All They Seem is our next song. This is a 2-cost inkable song, and it gives a character -3 strength this turn. I think this is, again, we're talking about cards where it's too much to commit on one card. You know, like, giving up a card for this effect is too much, too little on an entire card to be a good return on investment. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 2 as well.
Next is Treasures Untold, is another song for blue. Here, this is a rare song. It is inkable, costs 6, and allows you to return up to 2 items from your discard to your hand. So kind of like a double Tamatoa on a song. I don't know as though, again, we're going to, like, this is worth an entire card. Unless, like, there's a combo or something that you can do with it later on.
I mean, you can sing it with Medusa, because she doesn't quest hard.
Right.
I think it's pretty decent.
It could be. Over time, it definitely could prove out to be. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 3.
Which makes sense, because we seem to be about a 2 and a 3 on it. But right now, I don't think it's there, but it could be in the future. Next is Field of Ice. This is a 3-cost item that is inkable. Has the ability of Icy Defense. Whenever you play a character, they gain resist 1 until the start of your next turn. Which is weird, because whenever you play a character, so it's like, okay. Like, it's good if you're flooding the board. Like, I'm going to play a bunch of X1s and you can't tink them.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all I have to say about that. It just seems really thin to me. I gave it a 1.
You gave it a 2.
Yeah, I don't know about that card. Next is Great Stone Dragon. This is a 3-cost inkable item. 2 abilities on this one. Asleep. This item enters play exerted and awaken. Very fitting. You can exert it, put a character from your discard into your inkwell face down, and exert it. I feel like this could take the place of like Heart of Tefiti if you really feel like you need a 5th Fishbone Quill.
Mm-hmm.
But you still do need to be able to play cheap characters, and Red Blue specifically seems to be moving away from that with like using brawls and things like that instead of like Red Rush Queens. So I don't know if this will fall in line with that, but I could certainly see a world where people are playing this as a 1 of or so. I gave it a 3.
I think I gave it a 3 too.
You did. Ice Block is our next card. This is a 1-cost uninkable item with the ability of Chilly Labor. You can exert this item and give a chosen character -1 strength this turn. Seems playable. I think it's already being played in certain decks. People are testing it out.
Good for Brawl, good for Sisu.
It's at its best for sure in Red Blue.
Yep.
Because that's where things matter.
Medusa.
Could be relevant in Blue-Green if that's ever a thing with Under the Sea as well. But yeah, I agree with you. At Blue-Red, I think this is a card you want to be playing. I give it a 3.
I gave it a 3.
Next is our first location for Sapphire. This is Ariel's Grotto. This is a 2-cost inkable location. It's got a 2 movement cost and 7 willpower. It has the ability of, no passive lore. It's got the ability of Treasure Trove. While you have 3 or more items in play, this location gets 2 passive lore. Doesn't seem like that big of a lift for the blue decks to have that, but it's going to take time. Like, you're not going to trigger it on your turn 3 most likely, right? Because you're going to play Popsicle on 1. Your 2 is going to be Grotto. Then your set phase of turn 3 is going to happen. Even if you play 2 more Popsicle, you don't get the 3 till the following turn.
I don't think I would play this card, but if I did, I'd probably hold it in my hand till later when I had it.
Right. It seems like it could win the game. Like, you put pressure in multiple different ways on your opponent to do something. So it has the hallmark of the possible.
You don't want it on 2, I don't think.
Yeah, I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 2 as well.
Yeah. Winter Camp is our next one and our final one for Sapphire. This is a 3-cost inkable location. It is a 1 movement cost, 8 willpower, and 1 passive lore location. It has the ability of Help the Wounded. Whenever a character quests while here, remove up to 2 damage. If they're a hero character, remove up to 4 damage instead. Which is fine. It's got stats, right? Like, for 1 more, you could play McDuck Manor, which would give you more passive lore. And for the most part, it's probably better. This is, like, it could be relevant potentially, but again, feels more like that sideboard card kind of thing that we have going on, unless healing becomes something very, very important, which the only time it does in this particular game is when it draws cards with it. It could be something. I don't really think that this is going to go anywhere. I'm going to change my score on this one, I think, because talk myself down.
When I saw that, I was like, I'm surprised he gave that a 3.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 2. I think it's potentially playable and limited, where healing a character really does matter. Mm-hmm. But in here, not so much. Excellent. I'm going to take a quick refreshment break. Just be like 15-20 seconds, and I'll be right back for the final color. That's Steel. Alright, thanks so much for hanging in. Really quick, just want to again plug the IllumiNation podcast. Get that wherever fine podcasts are sold. We are here on Twitch every single Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. New video over on our YouTube every Thursday. And I'll also take a brief moment to plug the Tapes and Scowls podcast. It's a movie review podcast where 2 friends review every single movie that they watch. Old, new, good, bad. If that was put on the screen and watched through the runtime, it gets reviewed on Tapes and Scowls. It's a lot of fun. Check that out if you are so inclined, as well as the IllumiNation podcast, where Sam and I talk Lorcana every other Wednesday. And you can get that anywhere you can get a podcast. You can see it over in this corner. Ding, 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 boom. So give that a look if you are so inclined. We appreciate the support. Appreciate everybody being here in chat. Really, really helps with these reviews to get some other opinions on things. So I appreciate everybody being here. Want to thank everybody for hanging in. And we're going to jump into Steel right now with our first character up. It is Aladdin, Brave Rescuer. Aladdin is a 3/3/1 for 3 inkable. Has the shift ability of discard a location card. A tough shift, if I do say so myself, and has the ability of crashing through. Whenever this character quests, you may banish chosen item. I will contend that the art is Aladdin on an elephant smashing an entire building, which would be a location, not an item in my opinion, but there you have it. I think that this card is good because it is a 3-drop Floodborn, so you can go Bucky on 2, Aladdin on 3. I think that it being able to repeatedly blow up items was beneficial for Wildcat. I think it'll be nearly as beneficial for Aladdin. I don't think you're going to shift this character into play very often, but I do think that this particular card is pretty cool. I like the art, I like the flavor. I think it's going to be a pretty strong card in the decks that it's good in, because it's either this or Benja. Benja may still just end up being the right choice, but for now, I'm going to go with, I'm an Aladdin fan, so I'm going to be kind to Aladdin and give this one a 4.
And I gave it a 3.
You did, so it gets a 3.5, which is probably honestly correct, right? Like, I wouldn't go, like, I think it's a little more than unexciting, but it's not ridiculously strong staple card either. It's a meta-dependent card. Next is Aladdin, Resolute Swordsman. This is the shift target here. This is a 1/3/1 for 1, inkable. It's a 3 because it's a shift target, basically.
Were you playing it today? You were playing the Aladdin.
I was not.
No?
CJ was playing the Aladdin.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, Aladdin can do work against the decks if they keep putting out items. I think this one's a 3.
I think it's a 3.
Excellent. Next is Argus. Argies? I don't know. Argus. I'm not up on my Greek mythology. Args? I can't be right. Argies. This is a 4/1/1, which used to be the number for information if you're old, and is a 2-cost inkable. Cyclops, of course. I think this card has minor potential because of weight set specifically. It's got big, so it triggers the weight set. I think that's the only real mention and the only reason why it would see any play. So I give it a 3 because weight set makes it possibly a playable.
I gave it a 2.
You disagree, so it gets a 2.5, which is probably honestly accurate. Next up is Ariel, Determined Mermaid. She is a 2/4/1 for 3, inkable, with the ability of I Want More. Whenever you play a song, you may draw a card and then choose and discard a card.
It's like kind of like Cinderella.
Yeah, it's a shift target. I give it a 3.
I gave it a 3 as well.
Yeah, steel tends to loot, so it's its thing. Next up, Ariel, Sonic Warrior. This is a 3/8/2 for 6, inkable, shift 4, and the ability of Amplified Voice. Whenever you play a song, you may pay 2 ink to deal 3 damage to chosen character. I've been playing Steel Song for basically the entirety of the game in one capacity or another. I've always pick it up when I can, or I think it's going to be a playable deck in the meta. This Ariel's tough for me. I want it desperately to be good. I don't know how good this card truly is. I think my score is going to end up coming down over time, because I just feel like this card is a win more card. I feel like this card is good against the decks that Steel Song is already good against. So maybe if there's like a Steel X and it's not yellow, that maybe she gets better. Yeah, I agree with you, Hyper Hippo. If it costs 1 to use and deal 2, that's a lot better. It feels like you already have such a good game against the small to mid-sized characters that this just eats up a lot of ink that you need. Your ink is so precious in Steel Song that using it here to just deal 3, like you get free copies of Smash, doesn't feel the best. But maybe it lets you play more card advantage-y songs or more hand disrupt-y songs in these styles of decks, and it takes some time to refine and build. I want this to be better than it is right now. Right now, I don't think it's that great. I'm putting my score in for hope, and my hope is that it's a 4.
I put it at a 5.
I think you're way off. So that gives us a 4.5 for this one. Next is Beast Thick Skinned. This is a 2/3/1 for 3, inkable with resist 1. I think this is a 2.
I think it is a 2.
It's a little generous, perhaps. Chifu. This is 0/5/1 for 3, inkable with the ability of Overly Cautious. While this character has no damage, he gets 2 lore, additional lore when he quests. So he can quest for 3 while he is not damaged. I think this is a limited card to me. I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 3.
So it is a 2.5. Wouldn't surprise me if some list was playing it or testing it anyway. Next is Chen Po, Imperial Soldier. This is a 4/7/1 for 5, inkable with Bodyguard. So predominantly stats, I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 2.
Next is the first Steel Legendary. RIP for Steel Legendaries this set. This is Donald Duck Buccaneer. This is a 3/4/1 for 4, inkable. It is a Dreamborn Hero Pirate Captain. Captain, probably the most relevant thing on this card.
Pirate could be.
Has the ability of Boarding Party. During your turn, whenever this character banishes a character in a challenge, your other characters get 1 additional lure when they quest this turn. I love that the sword tip breaks the frame. Otherwise, I think this card is like super medium. 3/4 for 4 is like in a deck that wants to be predicated on challenging, letting things quest for a little bit more is something. Like you said, one of the best things it has is Pirate. Sorry about that, everybody. Sorry about that. The dog was not happy with things. She's very passionate about Donald Duck. So I think that Captain and Pirate are the most relevant things this have going on for it. I don't really think that there's much else on this card to get excited about. I gave it a 3.
I also gave it a 3.
Thank you. Next up is Hercules, Beloved Hero. This is a 6/5/2 for 6 inkable with Bodyguard and Resist 1. There's a lot going on here, none of which is super duper exciting. It doesn't shift like the previous Hercules. We saw the 6/3 Resist 2. This feels very similar, just like slightly worse. The Bodyguard doesn't seem super relevant here unless you really, really need the Bodyguard. I gave it a 3. I could maybe see a world where it's played.
And I gave it I can't find it.
It's a 3.
It's a 3.
So next up is LeFou, Opportunistic Flunky. This is a 2/3/1 for 3 inkable. So far, things we don't like on the podcast. But it has an ability. I learned from the best. During your turn, you may play this character for free if an opposing character was banished in a challenge this turn. Now, this feels like a payoff for challenging things. You get a free character. He gets to come down, and he's a body with sizable enough stats. 3 is enough to sing Strength of a Raging Fire, let the storm rage on. I think LeFou, once he finds a home, is going to be very good. I don't know if he's going to find a home right at the gate, but I think that this reads 2/3/1 for 3 inkable's terrible until it's a 2/3/1 for 0. Then all of a sudden, it's a real card.
Yeah.
I gave him a 4.
I gave him a 4 as well.
Excellent. Next up is Li Shang, Imperial Captain. This is a 5/5/2 for 5 inkable. I gave this a 1. Perhaps a 2, but...
it probably would get played in limited, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll just make it a 2, because I do think that, again, we want to address when it is a limited card versus when it is a stone cold unplayable, so I think we're just kind of like to the point where it's like, oh, another stats card, let's move on.
Yeah, and it's inkable, so...
Yep. Next is Ling, Imperial Soldier, who is a 3/3/1 for 3 inkable with the ability of Full of Spirit. Your hero characters get +1 strength. I gave this a 3. I could see a world where the hero decks end up being a thing.
I gave it a 3 as well.
Excellent. Next is Luisa Madrigal. This is a 2/4/1 for 3 inkable, and she has the ability of I'm the Strong One. While you have another character in play, any character at all, she gets +2 strength. Good for limited, perhaps. Best flavor text in the set, in my opinion. I don't know what the relevance of the donkey is in terms of the story, but I just love the fact that she's like got a full-on sword and shield and she's protecting this donkey. Very funny. I think because she's a limited card, she gets the 2.
Yep, 2.
Excellent. Next is Magic Broom Aerial Cleaner. Is he clean Ariel or is he an aerial cleaner? It's an aerial cleaner.
Aerial cleaner.
He's got a little wing strap to him. He's cleaning the lamp from Aladdin. 2/3/1 for 2 inkable. Winged for a day. During your turn, this character gains evasive. So this is a lot like the Jafar, the Cruella, just the stats are in reverse. Unfortunately, in reverse is worse. So I don't think that this will really work out too well. I gave it a 2.
Yep, I gave it a 2.
Next is Magic Broom Brigade Commander. Brooming it up over here. Remember, for a lot of the cards where you name a card, that's why it's relevant, right? Like multiple magic brooms. Multiple in Amethyst, multiple in Steel. So you can really set up a lot of brooms here. 2/6/2 for 6 inkable with Resist 1 and the ability of Army of Brooms. This character gets +2 strength for each other character named Magic Broom that you have in play. I think this will be a card in the Broom deck most likely. I don't think it's going to be a stunning card because of the cost. But I think that like the +2 strength is pretty irrelevant. There's like it can hit things, but it can't like ready really easily. I just don't think it's exactly what the Broom deck is setting up to be doing either. So I gave it a 2.
I gave it a 2. I think it'd be a 3 if there's a good Broom deck.
And it has to be a role player in the Broom deck. Like you have to ask like question 1 and then question 2, and it's got to check both boxes. I don't think it does. A card that probably does check the second box anyway is Mickey Mouse, Playful Sorcerer, 3/4/2 for 5 inkable, shift 3, resist 1, and the ability of Sweep Away. When you play this character, deal damage to chosen character equal to the number of Broom characters that you have in play. So this is a card that can come in, and if you have 2 or 3 Brooms, it'll deal 2 or 3 damage. And I think that's kind of going to be its baseline most of the time. Not amazing, but solid. It's doing what the Broom deck wants to do. It's giving you direct damage. It's stapled to a body that's pretty good. 3/4 resist 1 means it gets around Madam Mim and it takes out Madam Mim. So it's a good stat line. Like it's pretty good. I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3 too. I've tried to play it in the
co-op
game. I couldn't get it to work, but
the co-op game is so predicated on wiping your board constantly that keeping any Brooms in play is a chore. Next up is Mickey Mouse Standard Bearer. This is a 1/3/1 for 2 inkable, and it has the ability of Stand Strong. When you play this character, chosen character gains Challenger 2 this turn. So it's kind of like Merlin Crab, but I think Steel has the ability to deal more effective like damage other ways other than Challenger. We haven't really seen Challenger on a card since Chapter 1 be relevant outside of Captain Hook, Forceful Duelist. This costs twice as much as Captain Hook. It just doesn't quite do it. The art is fantastic. I love that it's got the big steel symbol on the flag. I love that. Outside of the art, though, there's not really a lot for me to be excited about. It's a shift target. I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 3.
Mulan, Armored Fighter, is our next card. It is a 3/6/1 for 4 inkable. You know what that means. I gave it a 1.
Yeah.
Bad stats, doesn't do much. On the other side of the coin, we have arguably the best steel card from Ursula's Return. We have Phil, No Nonsense Instructor, Philoctetes, Trainer of Heroes. 2/3/2 for 4 inkable is not the most impressive stats in the world for the cost. However, he has 2 abilities. First, you gotta stay focused. Your hero characters gain Challenger 1. Not the most important thing in the world. However, second ability is insane. Shameless Promoter. Whenever you play a hero character, gain 1 lore.
Yeah, this can be nuts. With how many heroes there are?
Over 200 in these 4 sets. So there's about a set's worth of heroes in 4 sets. And only going to be more. Rockstar Stitch is a hero. Pride Lands is a card. You can do the spewing of all of the little tiny units that are heroes to just gain a ton of lore. The app won't tell you because it doesn't have an.
I was gonna look at how many were before the set.
If you use Dreamborn, it'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
So, being able to use Phil or use Phil as a replacement for Flute in a Steel Song style deck, because that deck already is predicated on having a bunch of heroes. You just have to like take out your Mr. Smees essentially. You can definitely do that. There are a lot of ways to utilize Phil in a very effective way. And again, like we talked about with Flynn Rider Frenemy, looking at these cards that just gain you lore for playing the game with a minor deck building cost is pretty crazy. So I think does not tell you the total.
It doesn't tell me total. No.
Okay. So I think that this can be extremely relevant as a card. So I gave Phil a 5.
I also gave him a 5. Yeah, it was 195 before the set.
195 before the set. So well over a set's worth of heroes. Yeah. Speaking of heroes, we have Piglet, Sturdy Swordsman. This is a 3/5/3 for 5 uninkable, resist 1, and the ability of Not So Small Anymore. While you have no cards in your hand, this character can challenge ready characters. Excuse me. this is another steel card that kind of doesn't get there. It's a legendary. It can do important things, but again, the stats are weird here, where it's like it quests, but it also wants to battle, but it also gets hit by Medusa at a point that it's actually relevant. It's not inkable, so it's like you just kind of like, I don't know where Piglet lives. Like, I don't know if he has a home. He has enough keywords and he quests hard enough. I could definitely see it being a card. I just don't think that it's gonna get there. I gave it a 3, but I even think that might be a little generous.
Yeah, I gave it a 3.
Fair enough. Next up is Raja, Royal Protector. Raja is a 3/4/2 for 4 inkable, and it has the ability of Steady Gaze. While you have no cards in your hand, characters with cost 4 or less can't challenge this character. So it shuts off Madam Mim if you have no cards in hand. So if you're playing an aggro deck and this is the top of your aggro curve, you can make sure Raja sticks around, which is kind of cool. But if you're on the play, that's nice. If you're on the draw, it gets a little worse because they're going to probably find a card to deal with him relatively quickly. But on the whole, I think that it's a decent enough card that I don't hate it, but I also don't know as though it's going to see a home. So I gave it a 3.
I gave it a 2.
I think that's pretty fair. Next is Raya, Unstoppable Force. This is a 3/6/2 for 7 inkable. Challenger 2, Resist 2. A lot of things that impact the board. You gave it your best. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may draw a card. It's a hallmark of a steel card I'd really like, except for the fact that it's...
Cost 7.
It costs 7 and is taken out by a card that costs 6 when it comes into play. It's just like, it's hard to damage it out because of the Resist 2, but Red's ability to just take this thing out, Blue's ability to just pop it into the inkwell, Green's ability to just put it on the bottom of the deck. It just feels so trivial for Raya to do nothing because of the Challenger 2. Though maybe she's the top end in a red steel deck, and she's the card that can come down and start like just knocking things down. You're readier, knocks another thing down. It just feels like it's a lot to ask. If this card had Rush, it would be another possibility to make this card very good. I mean, this is a super rare. I just, I wish it was a little bit better. If it was a 4/6, knock off the Challenger, change Challenger to Rush, I think this would be a real card.
Is there Rush in Steel?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
No.
But I want there to be.
Okay.
So deal with it.
I think that'd make it too strong. Steel
But
doesn't
it's a
need Rush.
super rare.
Steel doesn't need Rush.
I'm not saying Steel needs to have Rush.
Yeah.
I'm saying this card needs to have Rush. Next up is Yao, Imperial Soldier, 2/5/1. Sorry, did I do Raya's
I was
scores?
going to say, we didn't do scores.
I gave her a 2.
And I gave her a 3.
Yeah, disappointment. Yao, Imperial Soldier, speaking of disappointment. Pete is also super. I know, it sucks. Yao,
She's better than Pete.
She's better than Pete. I gave her a higher score than Pete. 2/5/1 for 4, inkable with Challenger 2. This is a 1, I believe. Yep. Next is Avalanche. This is a 4-cost uninkable action. Deal 1 damage to each opposing character. So we've seen this be very, very effective with Big Tink in the past. You may also banish chosen locations. Love the flavor here. This thing's crumbling on all the characters. Pretty neat. I think right now there's no home for this card just because there's not a location that you want to deal with plus a bunch of little characters. But being able to take out Pride Lands and all the things that were on Pride Lands feels real gross if that ever becomes a meta card. So I could see this in the right world becoming a playable for sure. I put this at a 3.
And I as well put it at a 3.
Next up is I Find 'em, I Flatten 'em. That is a 4-cost inkable song that banishes all of the items and has several dancing donkeys.
Probably Ruby Sapphire's Nightmare.
It's a tough one because it's right now just like if that was like, oh, I'm playing like this, I build to like the 6-cost aerial this from this set, like I really want to go off and have like 8 items for my Tamato. This can be pretty gnarly, but for the most part when you play this on 4 you're gonna get like a popsicle. Like I'd rather have cheap item removal right now that takes them off of being able to Flabrish them versus like just taking out a board full of items for a Tamato. Though I could see a world where there's enough redundancy now with Fortisphere and things like that that you need to play this card. So I could definitely see it being a playable. No doubt. I gave it a 3.
And I think I gave it a 2.
You did. So that gives us a 2.5. Next is One Last Hope. This is another song. It costs 3 and is uninkable. Chosen character gains resist +2 until the start of your next turn. If a hero character is chosen, they also may challenge ready characters this turn. So it's like Pick a Fight as a song that gives a buff. So it's like definitely better Pick a Fight, and we can see that by it going from uncommon to rare. But on the whole, I just don't see this card really making too many waves. I gave it a 2.
And I gave it a 1.
Gives us a 1.5 for the podcast. Next is the Mob Song. This is a Sing Together. It is a 10 cost uninkable Sing Together, just like Second Star to the right. This one deals 3 damage to up to 3 chosen characters and or locations. The problem I have with this card is it cannot target the same thing multiple times. So you can't just go 9 to one unit or 6 to one, 3 to another. Always has to be 3. So that makes this a lot to pay for not a lot of pay back, or not a lot of card advantage back. Situationally, yes, but mostly no. I gave this a 2 because I could see you trying to sing it in limited.
I gave it a 2.
Next is Triton's Decree. This is a 1 cost uninkable action. Each opponent chooses one of their characters and deals 2 damage to them. I wish this was inkable. If this was inkable, I would put this card at a 4 probably. Because you need it right now. You need to be able to deal with Bucky. Ward. If they just play...
Yeah, that would be awesome to play on 1 against Bucky.
Right. Like if you go, they go like Pegasus, turn 2 Bucky, you go fire the cannons on Pegasus and then use this to take out Bucky and you just clear the board. It's not the most useful thing. You're still 2 for 2ing, but you're dealing with Bucky, who is like one of those cards that's just incredibly game warping and is totally worth getting rid of. So I think Triton's Decree, if we see more cards that are small and warded like Bucky, I can see this card's value going up. As of right now, however, I think that it's like borderline playable. I gave it the 3.
And I gave it a 2.
Right, which I think 2.5 is like it's potential. Like it's sitting there waiting in the wings for the right
I could see
meta.
it being played.
Absolutely. Okay, here it is. Here it is, Hyper Hippo. It's the best card in Steel, really, if you think about it. It's this and Phil, and it's not close. This is better than Phil, I would say, most likely. Fortisphere. This is a 1 cost inkable item. It has 2 abilities. One is Resourceful. When you play this item, you may draw a card. The rest of the item is irrelevant.
It doesn't matter.
It does have a cool little ability of you pay an ink, banish it. Chosen character of yours gains Bodyguard, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, because you can protect a character.
Yeah. So it does a cool little thing, kind of like Popsicle with the healing, where it's like sometimes it's relevant. Right, exactly. It's like it's got this conditional other ability that's kind of cool. But for the most part, 90% of the time, this draws you a card, and then in a couple of turns, it draws you 2 more cards. Then eventually you get it back, and then it comes back down, and it draws you another card, and then it draws you 2 more cards after that, and you continue playing this engine game with your Sapphire cards. We've seen this with Popsicle. It's Popsicles 5 through 8. It's unfortunate because the card is not exciting to talk about, and it's inkable. Yeah, it's got a lot it can do. It's super good. It's super modal. It's a shame because it's like not a cool card or a flashy card, but it does a ton of heavy lifting. If you've been playing Lorcana, you know how frightening seeing this card really is. So I gave it a 5.
Yep,
5's all around.
Yep.
Next up is Imperial Bow. This is another item. It's much worse. It's a 2 cost inkable, and it has an ability of within range. You can exert it, pay an ink, and chosen hero character gains Challenger 2 and Evasive. I like the flavor because the Evasive, it's shooting from a distance, and it's getting more because it's got an arrow. Pretty cool, but on the whole, this is just slow and clunky and really doesn't do anything. I could see it playing a playable and limited. Just because of the both, it's kind of like Bad Fish Hook, essentially, in limited, so I give it a 2.
Makes it a 2.
Next is RLS Legacies Cannon. This is a 3 cost uninkable with the ability of Baboom, and it does what the card Baboom does. You exert this card, pay 2 ink, discard yet another card, and you can deal 2 damage to a character or a location. This is, in contention for one of the worst cards in Disney's Lorcana, in my opinion. This card is terrible. If you are new to trading card games, think about what you have to do to get this to work. You have to play the RLS Legacies Cannon on 3. Then you have to pay 2 more ink and discard a card in order to deal 2 damage. Likely by like turn 4 at the earliest. Mm-hmm. This is terrible. Like, just play Baboom.
Yeah. Baboom is inkable.
Baboom is inkable. This card just doesn't do anything well. It's extraordinarily clunky. It's incredibly resource hungry. It looks like you, in a world where it's like, yeah, but I could just like take a bunch of cards, and it's like, okay, but you're still just trading 1 for 1. Like, this doesn't even go. If it was just pay 2 and deal 2, it would still not be that good.
It'd be better. But
the fact that it also now is eating up cards from your hand, this is terrible design for this card. I hate this card. I think it's just atrocious. The fact it's a rare is cringy. Like, this is probably worse than Pete, because at least Pete can quest. This is awful. I give this a 1. I'd give it a 0 if I could.
I give it a 1.
Yeah, chat does not like it either. Ugh. I think we're gonna get a -5 from chat. I like that. I agree with that. Next up is the Wall, the Border Fortress. It's a 4-cost inkable location. It has a 2 movement cost, 8 willpower, no passive lore. It has an ability of Protect the Realm. While you have an exerted character here, your other locations can't be challenged. I still don't think this card would be playable if it said your other characters and locations can't be challenged.
Yeah, I go down to a 1 on this.
This card is not good. I could see it in a world of, in the future, where you're trying to set up something, it being possibly good. I gave it the 2 just because it might be something. I can't even give it a 2 because you're not going to play it limited, let's be honest. It's a 1. Changing my score, it's a 1.
Yeah, because you're not going to play it in limited. You're not going to have other locations, most likely.
Exactly. All right, you win. Thebes, the Big Olive. This, I think, is quite the opposite. I think this is actually probably the best location that we've gotten in Ursula's Return. This is a 2-cost inkable location. It has a 1 movement cost and 7 willpower, no passive lore. It has the ability of, if you can make it here. During your turn, whenever a character banishes another character in a challenge while here, gain 2 lore. It doesn't have that snuggly duckling A, cost, and B, conditional piece to it. It's kind of the mid-ground. It's just like, hey, do you want to just like challenge stuff? Gain some lore then. Which is cool. Like, we haven't had a payoff for challenging things in earnest. Right? Like, we haven't had, if we have, it's like that big Raya where it's just like too expensive and out of reach. This doesn't have the conditional lore, but it's a pain in the butt to deal with, and your opponent may go, you know what, I'm going to elect to play around this a different way and just choose to not go after this card directly. So it has some fringe possibility to break into being playable. Again, we have to have a deck that is predicated on wanting to challenge a bunch, which just generally doesn't exist. The best, like, challenge-specific card is Robin Hood. But, in all fairness, this location turns everything into Robin Hood. Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood. Yeah. So it's like, this is a pretty good location. I'm not saying it's great by any stretch. But just talking about other locations that we talked about them, I think this one has the best chance of seeing play across the table from you in Core Constructed. I gave this one a 3.
And I did too.
I think that it is all right. It's an all right note to end the set review on. So that will do it for the IllumiNation podcast, Ursula's Return full set review. Thank you all so much for listening on in. We really appreciate all of the hype we got in chat. Appreciate you watching this later on via the podcast feed. We really appreciate the support there. Appreciate you watching this on YouTube. Hopefully this has helped guide you through and give you maybe a little bit more perspective on some cards you were on the fence about. Really appreciate all the help from chat. Helping us with those extra ratings is always welcome. I love getting even further perspective. That's what it's all about, right? It's just our take on it, which may be different than somebody else's take. So getting that kind of collective think tank on a card is what it's all about early on, because analyzing cards is hard, which will allow me to point you to an older episode of the podcast, one of the great fundamental episodes of the podcast on card analysis and card evaluation. really good resources over at IllumiNation Podcast. Again, available anywhere that you get a podcast. You get a new episode of that every other Wednesday. Sam and I come at you. So if you ever want to hit us up on social media, there is a Facebook for IllumiNation Lorcana Podcast, I think, on Facebook. Happy to take suggestions, or hey, I'd love to hear you talk about this or that or the other. We always are looking for new episode ideas, something that you want to listen to, because why do it if you don't want to listen to it? It's kind of one-way street. I can listen to myself talk a lot. Trust me, I do. And I'd rather have you listen and actually get something valuable out of it. So hopefully the set review helps. If you want to see the set review handled a bit of a different way, Sam and I are talking over other ways to deal with it, maybe to cut out a lot of the stuff that's like, this is a limited card. Maybe just running like a scroll through of all the limited cards or something, like eliminating all the ones that are like, this is a 2 or a 1 because it's a limited card or a very bad card. Like, I would want to call out cards like RLS Legacy's Canon, just because I do feel like that could be a trap for newer players to play with. But if it's just kind of like, it's a 2/5/1 for 3 inkable, like, we don't need to talk about that. So if you feel like that's like kind of time wasty, let us know. Like, any concepts, ideas. We want to keep refining the podcast, right? It's evergreen, so we want to make sure we make it the product that you want to be listening to. So we will be back at you, of course, on Wednesday with a brand new episode of the podcast. This will be up as a bonus episode, since it's a little bit more unpolished and raw coming at you. You got that little Ellie barking thing that's guaranteed going to scare the crap out of everybody in the middle of the podcast.
Scared me.
Yep. So we appreciate everybody hanging in, and we hope you all have a great night. Until next time,
Keep questing.